Well, hello everybody, and sorry about that. Hello everybody, and welcome yet again to a latest edition of the Inworld review. It's the 6th of October already, and also already here in Second Life where we're filming. Halloween has already started, even though I was led to believe it didn't happen to the end of the month. More on that later, no doubt. Lots of spooks abound here. And I hope you are watching us in America too. I know you've shut down, but I don't think live streams a government website, so hopefully you'll be seeing us. Okay. Anyway, welcome to the show. This is the show where we look at all things happening in what we call the greater metaverse, the world of immersive spaces on the web in one form or another. And I'm being told lips, but I put lips on a minute ago and they were working. And if they're not working now, there's not much I can do about it. So maybe my avatar is speaking to you without lip movement. Fascinating idea. And yes, I'm getting confused already because there's loads of bleeping things going on in Skype, even though we're no live. Okay, so what is the news this week? Well, we have a great panel of guests for you coming up shortly. But for the moment, out in the greater metaverse, so to speak, I'm just scrolling down my list. Pathfinder Leicester has once again begun the Hypergrid Adventurers Club. It met last week for the first time in quite a while and visited the Centre of Global Health East Africa Traveller Safety Simulation. I should have taken a breath before I read that out, shouldn't I? But never mind. You can read about that at becunningandfulloftricks.com. Reports on the web saying serious games are on the rise across the board. And we'll be talking about some of the stuff at Hypergrid Business a bit later, but we've had a few links for there. Content is not king was one of them. A summary of On the Grids in October. We'll come back to all this as we go along. Just scrolling here. Okay, Steampunk Metropolis. A new grid. I believe it's a new grid anyway. It's a corporate city-state on the Hypergrid. So a lot to look forward to. Interesting article from Tuna Oddfellow on the web, all about Inworld versus Second Life, and we'll be touching on that as we go along. Linden Lab, who of course runs Second Life, brought out a couple of posts recently, and Dinara Prayat, living in the modern world, has got a good summary of it. Linden Labs seek to model Desura open source client after the SL Viewer model. Desura is a more or less a game distribution platform that Linden Lab recently purchased, and one wonders. Obviously, it's a company that distributes games already, which they've taken under their hats. One wonders what they're going to do there with Second Life. Some people have actually mentioned that their eagerness to acquire rights to properties in Second Life might be to do with wanting to be able to export them to platforms like Desura, but we'll come back to that in our conversation because we're heading that way anyway. What else have we got here, if I can find the right list again? There is a brand new Kitely, you actually saw an interview with their CEO just before we came on air here, has eliminated market listing fees and plans exports. And also this week, version 0.76 of the Open Simulator code base has actually been released. This is actually the one that was prototyped and tested at the Open Simulator community conference a couple of weeks ago. Just flipping up again here. It supports groups and export permissions, amongst other things. Fleet 2 was rather moving Lights. We've had her on this show quite frequently, and of course she owns Chilbo here, where we broadcast from. She has a fleeptook.com. She has a blog called Fleep's Deep Thoughts, which she writes occasionally to, and she has a post this week, Fleep's reflections on the first Open Simulator Community Conference 2013, and some wonderful words from her as always. And that's it. That's it for the main links in my own Twitter feed, believe it or not. So before I introduce today's panel and whatever, it's time to hand over to my colleague Tara, who's going to bring up to date on all her latest roundup, as it were, from Second Life and elsewhere. So over to you, Tara.
Thank you, Mel, and greetings everyone from the Pacific Northwest, where we're getting a little bit of Indian summer, and it's been sunny the last couple of days, although it's supposed to be going away and returning to normal rain tomorrow. First off, just a slight correction, Fleeptook does not own Chilbo Sim. Fleeptook was the founder of Chilbo as a community, and for a number of years Chilbo was operated entirely as a community-owned setup, and we did a change here about a year ago, and it's no longer group owned. There's some of it that's group owned, but most of it is owned by individuals. And I would say Chilbo is not quite the place it used to be, but it's still here, and still most of it is intact. So just a little correction on that. Let me see. Let me just start at the top of my list here. Interesting announcement from, yes. Oh, don't you hate it when you lose track of a name? Yes. Oh, phooey. University of Western Australia announcement. They are involved in production in a new machinima. Actually, it's more than a machinima challenge, but it's being called Sci-Fi Film Challenge 2013. It's a competition run by Screen My Shorts, Inc. in collaboration with WD. I'm not sure what WD stands for, but WD is Southeast Asia Limited. They're inviting entrants of all ages, cultures, and ability to submit original creative digital content. And they have prizes amounting to a total of 2.28 million lindens. That's Aussie dollars of 10,000. With at least a 230,000 linden reserved for machinima specifically, and winners will have their work exposed on the international stage. So this looks like a very big deal. Science fiction is the overall genre, and all who register will be allocated specific themes. And basically they have 4 round colors: blue, which is everyday life; green, the environment; black, speed and technology; and red, networks and connections. When you register, you can nominate 2 of the themes. Organizers will allocate one of the 2 nominated themes to entrants on the 1st of November, and they'll have until the 30th of November to get their entries in. The entry length will be between 3 to 10 minutes in length. All entries are to be made specifically for the WD Project Sci-Fi competition. In other words, people can't go in and just repurpose something they've already done, which I think is a good thing. And they need to register before the 1st of November. So those of you who are machinima producers and have an interesting sci-fi twist on things or an idea for that, get yourself organized. You'll find more details and links at the University of Western Australia website, and I don't have the link up here right in front of me, but if you Google University of Western Australia, I'm sure you'll find their blog with a link. Designing digitally, which comes up, their name comes up not too uncommonly around some interesting, serious use of virtual environments. In partnership with Barron Associates, won a coveted Brandon Hall Group Silver Award for excellence in the best use of games for learning category. And I didn't know anything about the Brandon Hall Award, so I had to look them up to see if this was just one of these ego boost sorts of things, or if there was some reputation behind it. Now entering its 19th year, the Brandon Hall Group Excellence Awards program is the most prestigious awards program in the industry, oftentimes called the Academy Awards by learning, talent, and business executives. The program was one of the first of its kind in the learning industry and was started in 1995. So that's a nice additional feather in their cap for Designing Digitally, who has picked up a number of awards for the work they've done around serious games and simulations using virtual worlds and e-learning solutions for companies around the country and globe. Let's see, you mentioned the new OpenSim server software release already, so I don't need to talk about that. Interesting item for those of you who are involved in advertising on the web basis. Google has announced the launch of a new advertising application in beta called Google Web Designer. The tool is for creating professional quality design, HTML5 ads, and campaigns, accessible to everyone from the designer to the dabbler. So if you're in that end of things at all, that's probably worth checking out, because it sounds like that's another Google attempt to break into the software end of things. It will create animated HTML5 creative with this is their promo, with a robust yet intuitive set of design tools. Yeah, robust but yet intuitive. Just what you want. You can view and edit the code behind your designs to see how bad it is if you are into code. I'm editing here. You can add creative seamlessly with DoubleClick and AdMob, or publish them to any generic environment. And the product will receive updates automatically without needing to re-download the application, and it's all free, at least at this point. I think Mel ran the video for this a week or so ago. The Inworlds, another one of the OpenSim places, on the Inworlds InShape beta, and I ran into the description on this, and there were a couple little things that I thought were worth noting. If you need to have access to an Android-powered phone for the beta. They're not the iOS and Windows Phone support will come after the beta period, and your Android needs to be at least 2.3.3, which should be, if your phone isn't too old, July 2011 should be supported. And you must own or have access to an exercise bike, elliptical, or treadmill, and a computer or tablet that can run a viewer connected to the Inworld's grid. So this isn't for those who don't have one of those items that's serving as a clothes rack sitting in your house, since you will need it in order to participate. Anyway, go to the Inworld's website to find the sign up for the beta if you're interested in that. And I think I've just run through my whole list. But I know we've got some great guests on the show today. And I know there's a lot to talk about, continuing discussions around the terms of service and creatives' reactions and all that as far as Second Life is concerned. So back to you, Mel.
Well, thank you, Sarah. Indeed, we have a little promo at the beginning of the Machinima thing, just after the show finishes, for the Sci-Fi Challenge that WD and University of Western Australia are involved in, along with some lovely new Aesop's Fable, Machinima, and other stuff. But that's all to come later when we enter the later hours for our clips of the week and everything like that. Yes, so there was something else you pointed out there, but I've forgotten what it is. Isn't that typical? So I think it's about time I introduced my guests. I still haven't got moving lips for the look of it, but we'll have to live with that. First off, I'd like to give a great welcome to somebody who's totally new to this show. I believe she's watched it, but she's never been here before. And it's Melanie Milland. Melanie has a wonderful tag over her saying she's the owner of Damnation, which is suitably Halloween-y, I suppose. But she's probably better known as, I guess, CEO of Avination, which is an independent grid, which is very similar to Second Life in some ways, but we'll come to that in a minute. So welcome, Melanie.
Well, thank you, Mel.
Okay. Next to Melanie, we have a good friend of the show, of course, and he's the man behind AView TV, and he's very heavily involved with LEA, the Linden Endowment of the Arts. So he'll be representing them a little bit in the conversation, I suspect, coming up. It's LaPiscean Liberty. Hi, Lap.
Hi, Mal. Thanks for having me on the show. It's good to be here.
All right. And in the other direction, on my right-hand side, it's a wonderful welcome back to Maria Korolov of Hypergrid Business. Welcome, Maria.
Thank you, Mal. Always good to be here.
Always good to see you as well. I keep forgetting to email you in time for these, but you got a very hasty one this morning because I think the topics are right up your street. And finally, next to Maria, we've got our good friend Will Burns, who's here more often than not these days. Amazing commentator on all things, whatever. Welcome, Will.
Thank you. Good to be back.
Okay. So there are some pertinent issues around at the moment, which actually sort of collide on the apart from Halloween, which is a minor affair really, even though it's happening for a whole month this year apparently. Second Life is in a degree of turmoil at the moment. With their new terms of service. We've discussed this last week, if not the week before as well, different aspects of it. Basically, the fact that Linden suddenly want to own material that was previously owned by creators, and more to the point, they pop up on their blog saying, "Oh, we didn't need to distress you. We're not really going to, we're not really going to take everything." And of course, but the big but here is, of course, that they haven't revoked their new terms of service or modified it in any way. So it's okay, they're apologising. This is like a company that has just defrauded you out of some money and then saying, "Sorry, we didn't mean to do that, but you're not getting it back." There is a lot going on. While one of the committee members at the Linden Endowment of the Arts, Brino, wonderful creator, she has actually resigned from the LEA and possibly is talking of leaving Second Life too because of this very issue. Tuna Oddfellow, who does an amazing multimedia spectacle, Inworld, is now Inworld's rather than in Second Life because he doesn't like the idea of his proprietary sort of event stuff being allowed into the hands of Lindens to dispose of as they like, etc., etc. So these are actually some great issues in the offing, as it were. I'd like to go first to Melanie here, who, as I said, is a person behind Avination. Avination, I was told the other day I must not describe it as an open sim because it's not. It is a variation on open simulator code, I believe, but it's rather like Inworld. It's a sort of semi-walled garden grid that exists as part of the metaverse, and rather like Second Life as opposed to OpenSim and the Hypergrid. Now, we're going to come on to a few issues related to that at the moment, but I'd like to start off, Melanie, by saying that I imagine you, particularly, have been one of the beneficiaries of the creeping exodus we seem to be seeing from Second Life. Am I right in thinking that?
Yes, indeed, we have been. As a matter of fact, we're picking up more interest by the day. We have several, some quite sizable city communities moving over from Second Life because they're saying that they are not happy with the TOS and that they've lost trust in Linden Labs. I've been hearing things said like Linden Labs preparing Second Life for asset stripping, marketing, sale. There's so many rumors abounding at the moment that it creates a climate of fear and uncertainty and doubt, and that drives people away. That's true. We have, as I said, a number of large communities. The virtual Cologne community, which is a German city that has a dome. For those who don't know, and the dome is not a dome, it's a church. And that particular city, they have completely left Second Life and they've moved to Avination. We have Virtual London, who are building a huge replica of central London, the South Bank. They have gotten quite far with that already. And now recently, apparently Virtual Chicago has cast a lot with us as well.
Oh, right. Global. Yeah, we had Des Regents on the show last week, and she was actually mentioning that too, in particular. What is it, 32 Sims or something? She's taken,
Yes, I believe at last count, yes, it's 32. On the other hand, we have no shortage of them.
Well, it's a big chunk of London. I know that. Hopefully, more. Well, it won't be to scale, but probably a more accurate replica than the ones
I wanted to. I'm sorry. I'd like to ask Melanie a question about her damnation. In that is, this community that has left Second Life and came to Avination and set up. I'm wondering if the content and the things that they build then there are, how does that differ on your servers than say it does on Second Life servers? How does this become more theirs and not yours? I mean, does this content go to your databases and your asset servers full permission once they build, script, or res anything on your land?
Well, you have to distinguish between the legal and the technical aspects of it. First of all, Damnation happens to be my community in Second Life, which has not moved. I don't want to make them homeless, so I'm keeping those Sims on for now, although I've been sorely tempted to drop them. However, assets. Now, technically, obviously, if you upload something to any company's servers, it is on their servers full permissions because it's just a line in a database. So the really governing factor is the legal situation. That means if we have a TOS that were like Linton Labs, then that would be the legal situation. Fortunately, our TOS is not like that. Our TOS leaves the creators their rights, requesting only assignment of those rights that are required to serve the content to a viewer, means to make it visible. You have to understand that when you upload something to a server and we have it in world and somebody else looks at it, that they are actually downloading the content so they can look at it, which means that we are making a copy. So that is the reason for the copyright grant clause that is in the TOS of every grid that has had taken any legal advice. However, ownership, copyright, apart from replicating the content to show in viewers, and authorship remain with the content creator. We are not about to change that either. If you upload it, it's yours.
Okay, so then basically you're saying that everything is the same pretty much from grid to grid, except it boils down to the language of the TOS. So in other words, if Linden Labs were to clarify or become a little more transparent with their intention of why the TOS was written this way, then perhaps there wouldn't be this great exodus.
No, not at all. You see, what I laid down was the minimal requirements that a TOS must have in order for the world to be able to function on a technological level without being in violation of international law. Linden Labs have taken this a whole lot further. First of all, they changed the TOS so that all newly uploaded content governed by that TOS is theirs to use as they see fit anywhere else, to sell, assign to other people, sub-assign, and so on. And then, as I heard, they even changed it in such a way that that also applies to all previously uploaded content, even though that content was uploaded under a different TOS and with a different understanding. So basically, they've reneged on the promise that they made in their former TOS.
Oh, can I make a comment here about
yes?
Okay, there for public grids, when it's somebody else's grid, yes, you do have to comply to the terms of service and give them at least some minimal permissions for your content, so they can do stuff with your content. And as Melanie said, different grids ask for different amounts of these permissions, with OpenSim grids in general asking for much fewer permissions than certainly Second Life is doing now. This is like uploading content to Facebook. You give Facebook the rights to, post your pictures and show them to people.
Yeah, what Second Life did here is a blatant land grab.
Yes. However, if you have your own grid, that's more like having your own website that you post pictures on. You don't have to give any third party the rights to your content at all. And some creators are also doing this. It's becoming easier and easier to set up your own OpenSim grid, or get somebody to host an OpenSim grid for you where you own the grid. And in that case, there's no terms of service. You are the full owner of the grid, the owner of the servers, the owner of the database, and owner of all that content.
Well, it's something that I said a while back.
It's that simple.
Something that I said a while back, that essentially it's like a web host saying that because you're hosting your website via our company, we now own all the websites on here and all the content, and it doesn't fly. In any other situation, if you went to whatever XYZ web host, and they said, okay, we have like 350,000 websites, and by the way, we own them all. Everybody would leave tomorrow. They'd be like, what the hell's wrong with you? I mean, that's just the way it works. I mean, looking at Linden Lab saying, well, we own, and it's very clearly spelled out. It's like, unrestricted, in perpetuity, resale, blah. It's like, wow, that's like, you couldn't get any clearer than that. And what blew my mind was people afterwards going, no, they didn't really mean that. They must mean something else. And I go, that's as clear as you get. It really is. It can't get any clearer.
Including technology not yet invented.
Yeah, they're just claiming everything from now until infinity. And I go, that's about as clear as one can get. Like, I don't know how much clearer they need to make it. It's clear as a bell. And they go, well, what could they possibly mean by this? And I go, I think they pretty much spelled it out. I mean, if they're claiming resell and everything else, I would assume that's what their goal is, to at some point figure out a way to resell it. And I've heard a lot of things going, well, AAA designers won't have no interest in it. I go, I don't care about AAA designers. They care about indie designers. They just picked up Desura. What is Desura trying to target? Indie game developers. That's their market. How do you differentiate yourself? Tell them, hey, we can expedite your content pipeline because we got a mountain of content over here. If you need a new car for your great new racing game, go check out Marketplace. We got 50,000 cars here in high quality. This is of interest to indie developers, and that's like a gold mine to Desura. So that's how I make the connection there. Like, what are you going to do with how are you going to resell it? Well, you're not going to. Some people could say, well, we're going to try to sell off Second Life itself. I don't necessarily believe that. I think they're trying to support or figure out a way to tie this into, say, their other interests, because obviously they have other interests everywhere else now. So those are their babies. What are they going to do? They're going to try to prop them up.
I don't know. As Second Life content is designed to work inside Second Life, I can't really imagine a big secondary market for it. The way Second Life explained it is that they need resale rights so they can sell stuff on your behalf in the marketplace and for Inworld stores. But then they should have said that in the TOS, that the resale rights on your behalf. They're selling stuff for you. They should have clarified it, but they didn't. The second thing is we can say, well, it only works in Second Life. However, at no point would that stop them from creating an API that says if you create an indie game, you can have access to SL type technology to incorporate in your game to have access to all this stuff. That would be part of that package. Like if you want access to all this content, you can incorporate our API or whatever into your game, and it will automatically translate stuff for you. It's
not even that complicated.
It's not even that complicated.
All they have to do is they have to point them at parts of OpenSim that can already do it.
Mm-hmm. And so that's something that would if I was an indie developer and I had a couple $1,000 and 2 guys in a garage, and somebody told me I had a mountain of assets and models and scripting and whatever, and all I had to do was implement this API and pay a fee. Good God, I'd be on that tomorrow. I'd be like, where the hell do I push the button?
The other possibility is Second Life is working on Oculus Rift support, and the Oculus Rift is a great tool for wandering around and looking at environments. And if you're not a developer, but you want to create an environment to use with Oculus Rift, they might want to leverage some of this content to use for that and expand the potential market.
Oh yeah,
I've got to disappoint you. We already have Oculus Rift support
in OpenSim, yes,
through a viewer that has been made with Oculus Rift drivers, and we have users running around Avination with Oculus Rift.
As Crap just pointed out in chat here, Oculus Rift is a red herring.
Crap Mariner's in the oldies here. He says his shotgun has already been invented, and they better not try taking his stories.
Don't you go back.
Is it the Melanie? Is it the Control Alt Delete viewer? Have I got the name right?
Control Alt Studio.
Supports Oculus Rift.
Yeah.
Yes, Control Alt Studio supports Oculus Rift, and it logs into Avination flawlessly, and everything's just fine. I probably have to get me one of these things.
I want one too.
I've finally got myself one of these Leap devices, but nothing supports it yet. So I just want to flap my hand at the screen, and I tried it out in Second Life, and the zoom button works for the camera, but I wanted to flap my hand to go forward and pull it back to go back, and it wasn't going to have any of it.
Well, that'd be puppeteering, and the technology doesn't support puppeteering.
Yeah,
I don't see Oculus Rift as being any user-based generator. In fact, to make Second Life compatible with Oculus Rift, I think would narrow the community down to more of a high-tech development community, period, than a social community that it is. And so bringing Oculus Rift to OpenSim is great for developers and all of that, but I don't see where it did anything to enhance your user base or bring more people to OpenSim.
That is correct.
No, it's very much another gadget, really, and sort of it doesn't at the moment. It doesn't include things like the headphones and sound, and it inhibits you as much as it sort of broadens your horizons visually.
Users using Oculus Rift can mingle with others.
I think it has an inherent nifty factor. Is what it is.
Yeah, as Will has raised in the past, and we mentioned in previous weeks, though there are some motion type sickness and various other symptoms with Oculus Rift. They say they're going to try and fix it, but it's maybe it's a totality of immersion that sort of makes you lose real world cues and things after a period of time. So there are issues to be addressed yet, and I really can't see everybody in a
on the other hand
sitting in their living rooms with Oculus Rift.
Here's something that's really interesting too, is that if you look at any of the research involved with cyber sickness or simulation sickness, one of the main things they say is that higher resolution, higher detail and higher resolution actually makes it worse and manifest faster. And Oculus Rift is going to go to 1080p, and I'm going, yep, it's going to go faster. But the really interesting thing, and this is like a side note, is that iOS 7 is causing the same issues too. And you got to remember, too, that this is Retina display, super high resolution, and they're doing the whole parallax view stuff, and people are getting cyber sickness off of this. They're going, man, I feel sick. And I'm like, aha, it's manifesting because it's super high resolution, and they're moving stuff around too much. I'm like, told you.
Well, I have a nice effect on my home screen, but I'll leave it at that. Actually, you can actually turn it off, which is good. But it's nice in small doses.
It's development time that, just a direction that I think is taking up time and not really, they could use the resources and the time more creatively. Like, for an example, you were talking about the flag for objects made in Second Life, so to speak, like made in Second Life flag or tag that goes along with all these items, so that there is compensation to the creator that created it once they allow Linden Labs to do all that. But aside from that, things like only works in Second Life, the development in Singularity, for an example, being able to download your prim build into a Collada file and then, exporting it as an object through your own software on your own machine, your own modeling programs, and then being able to upload that again as mesh. I think development along those lines and making what we already have easier for users to use would go a long ways towards both the creator and the social building of the community.
Mm-hmm. I think this comes the mesh thing actually interestingly comes back to what we we're just talking about. I think we know with a Singularity, for example, you can take, a 12 prim object, you can export it, you can actually not do much with it, but then turn the mesh and bring it back,
now
and
the textures go with it now.
It's only got a land value of... Yeah. Yeah. But you can, you then bring the same thing back into Second Life, and the land impact is considerably lower than the prim version. And Linda Labs have actually claimed, that sort of mesh is going to change the whole environment and everything else. And I actually wonder if when they are making a grant for assets, they're probably more interested in the mesh assets than anything else, because the mesh assets are certainly more exportable or exploitable from Linden Labs' point of view. Prim objects tend to be stuck in the Second Life environment and can't really go much further. So mesh in particular, I think, is one of those things that might be impacted by loss of rights if you bring it into Second Life.
Well, there's actually some pretty good prim to mesh converters out there now.
Yeah.
Even Singularity contains one now.
Yeah, well, take Debs, who was with us last week, talking about Virtual London on Avination with you. All 32 sims, or however many it was, are actually going to be built using mesh. So there'll be no prim structures involved. It will all be done with mesh, which is economical, and for things like buildings and landscaping, looks far superior to what we can do with prims.
Yes, especially since, unlike Second Life, we have elected not to implement something like land impact. So, because we allow higher prim counts anyway, we have decided that we just leave it. We be one mesh, one object equals one prim. So, mesh actually is not limited in the way it is here in SL. This is a very important factor, which I hear from mesh creators, that they are complaining that Second Life land impact prevents them from uploading their best creations.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's
prim. The prim count. The prim count, whether you're on any grid, is only a number. In Second Life, it's 15,000 prims. You go over to OpenSim, it's 45,000 prims. Now, how is that possible? Why would Second Life not have 45,000 prims per region, the same as OpenSim?
Oh, I can tell you that.
That's easy.
Let me finish. It's just a number. It doesn't represent anything other than scaling your population to the server itself. In other words, if OpenSim had as many people on its grid as Second Life has on its grid, then you too wouldn't have 45,000 prims per region, because you wouldn't be able to support it.
Wow.
So that's
that is wrong. That's
not entirely true.
The server architecture is very different, first of all, in OpenSim than in Second Life. But also, on Kitely, for example, they've tested their builds up to 100,000 prims. And because it's cloud-based, they can add more server resources as they need to support a very large number of avatars if they need to on a region.
The main thing is, though, the number of prims on a region is only a factor of the region server. It's not a factor of the grid in total. No matter whether I have 200 regions, 2,000 regions, or 20,000 regions, if I have the requisite number of servers to be able to handle it, I can handle 45,000 prims throughout. Now, the reason for the 15,000 prims is different when it's economical. If you have 15,000 prims on a mainland sim and you try to build a halfway decent house on a 512, you find that you have to buy another 1,024 just so you have enough prims for your 512. This so-called prim land is being caused by the artificial scarcity of prims that's been introduced through the 15,000 prim limit, and the need to buy prim land is created by the scarcity, and that is why it's 15,000.
That's one. Yes. That's one very good reason I actually support that.
Good point.
There's another one there. There's another one too, though it's on the opposite end of the scale. And this comes from a note from when I was in Active Worlds years ago, before SL existed. They had something similar to how Avination does it, where one object equals one object, and the way they did it was the world is divided into cell data, and that's and each cell, at a 10 by 10 meter or something, can only hold X amount of objects and or commands within the object. So it was like the equivalent of scripting, prior to scripting in SL. So what would happen is they they did that not because that was an ultimate limit, but that was how much the server could handle on a 10 by 10, to divide it up for 10 meter by 10 meter. And the density of information is what their problem was. If you have high density and then you have high people, you're serving a large density of information to a large number of people, and that sort of tends to overload a server. Because right now you can't, you have an issue with, in a Second Life where, if 100 people show up, you're serving all that density of information to all those people from a centralized location and trying to keep updating everybody. Now in Active Worlds, when they did it with the cell data, they realized it was more about the density of information that had to be served individually to each person, and if the server could handle it. So if I went in and put in I remember I did a test years ago where I did a photorealistic avatar, and you can do it in here too now that they have mesh, but we actually did like photorealistic skin, whole 9 yards. We went, just to see, because before that time nobody had ever done it. Nobody even thought about, can this be possible? And I did it like where the hands and the fingers were just fine. It was like on scale with SL quality avatars and up. And by the time nobody thought of even trying that. It was like, well, why would you even bother? And I said, well, it's about 6,000 poly or something like that, 6,000 vertices or whatever. But I have the number somewhere still in backup. But it was the first time anybody tried something that high. Well, the reason it worked, but the density of the information to serve it to everybody else is what slowed it down. And they said, well, anything over this kind of number, of density information is what's going to start slowing things down. So when you start having like one object, it's fine. When you have like, a whole bunch of stuff where it's a high density of complexity and high density of resources that it requires to serve it back out, it adds up. It's not just the one person trying to look at it. It's fine when you got like 5 or 6 people, it just, spits it out. But when you got like 50 or 60 people and you're trying to serve, an actual population, it starts crippling a server unless you have a really good server. Now,
yes,
that may
those
not be
concerns were one of
so
the
that adds up pretty damn quick.
Okay.
So yes, it is actually
conference?
So yes, it is actually a thing where you say, yes, 15,000 is an arbitrary limit. Yes, it is. I absolutely agree, and it does drive the land sales and everything else. But there's also the other side of the density of the information.
There's a open sim grid called Moses. It's run by the military, and they're using something from Intel called a distributed scene graph, which allows up to 1,000 avatars in a region. And they've been running big scalability tests on it. And the way this works is that instead of having one server serve up a region, multiple servers share the workload in order to support as many people as they want. And they're finding that one of the bottlenecks right now is the viewer, because the viewer can only show so many other people in motion. Because if your avatar is doing stuff and other avatars around you are doing stuff, it's not so much the static content that's standing in place. It's the constant updates of what all the other avatars are doing that is one of the bottlenecks. How much could the viewer actually show?
I'm a member of Moses Grid, and I've worked over there, and I know Doug, and what he's doing with scaling, and I believe that I have a vision for scaling Second Life and OpenSim, and what you just brought up, the problem being in the viewer, is exactly what I come to in a solution for scaling. Now, my idea doesn't put the avatar at the event, but if you'll notice in Second Life now, take Firestorm for an example, in their radar, you're at a busy event and you TP home. If you immediately look into your radar, you see that all those people are still in your radar from halfway across the grid. And if you right click and zoom in, you go right back to where you were, even though you're standing at home. So my idea is this: if you want to put 5 or 10,000 people on a sim, you need to create the viewer so that it only TPs your media rights and your camera opposition. All your local assets are frozen. You can't pull things out of your inventory and place them there or anything, but you can go there. You can view there, and you can interact with media that's there without having the lag of all these avatars on the sim at all.
So but then the place will look deserted.
I suppose you can do that. My thought on it is to approach it like Solipsis Decentralized Metaverse from INRIA, from their research, which was to do a cascading area of interest networking with a Vernai diagram. So the close, you take a radius and it cascades out, because honestly, if you're at a football stadium with 100,000 people, you don't really care and you really don't see what's going on the other side. There's people over there, but their updates are pretty much non-existent. It's just it doesn't need to be updated.
Well,
so
yes,
you keep an area of interest.
If you keep it imposters anyway.
Well, you use imposters, yes, but I'm saying, in the grand scheme of things, it won't update. You have high priority when you're within a radius. Like if you're dancing right now, you can't even stay synced. So that would be a high priority instance in an area of interest network.
My idea is that all of SL is a stream. Anyway,
but that's all technicality.
And acting as a stream. If SL is a stream, like everything else is, and SL itself is a stream, it's just that there's nothing really acting as an encoder for projecting this, say, to the web or whatever as such, and interact with it. But at large events and concerts and shows and things like that, where people are just going to watch the show and interact with the media that's there, I see that you could put thousands of people on a sim. By just
you could not in such a way that one could see each other, and seeing each other, the crowd feel is the important
part. Try and simplify. Yeah. If I can just try and simplify this, because we're getting very techy here, actually. This rather seems like an ideal thing for, say, a concert where you want lots of people. What you're effectively doing is people can stay at home on the grid, and they can send their camera into the concert, and they will be present in every sense of viewing and hearing everything, but they won't be physically present. They'll still be on a nice lag-free simulator somewhere, and they'll just sort of send their camera in.
This brings in big real-life name bands. That brings the deadheads into Second Life for an exclusive show, something that could be simulcast to the web, something that is real life happening in Second Life. Not only that, this is like a tuner. You could point your camera to OpenSim even though you're in Second Life. All you need is a login URI. You know what I mean? And boom, you're there. You don't have to leave Second Life to view OpenSim. You wouldn't have to leave OpenSim to view what's going on at an event in Second Life because of this tuner.
But that's kind of the thing. That's kind of the problem, is that people aren't in here just to view stuff. We're in here to interact with stuff.
Yeah.
It's the difference between Second Life and television. If I wanted to watch something, I'd turn the TV on.
Hang on a second. As a broadcaster, this is something we want to look at, because at the moment, broadcasting is like television. This show is going. We don't have much of an audience here if we can help it. We avoid lag. We just send this out as a broadcast, as a replay later on. It'd be nice to have a button on the show on the web where people can teleport in somehow if they want. Now, whether that was teleporting into a view of the event or teleporting into the immersive event itself is another matter. But our aim is to
promote the solution I was working on was scalability. It was one solution towards scalability. That's
I know ActiveWorlds has something like that. It's actually a camera command for objects. It lets you choose click on an object somewhere else, and it brings you to a camera.
This is an exercise with television. We are bringing the virtual world out to people who aren't necessarily in it, and finding a way for them to replay events. But we're principally trying to promote the immersive environment and all of its benefits. So we're getting into a very different sort of subject here. I'd like to actually move back to Melanie for a while, with all of you joining in, of course. Getting away from the Exodus thing from Linden Labs for a moment. Avination is a grid which shares a lot in common with Second Life in some ways, not the terms of service, or not anymore anyway, but you have your own in-world economy. So, for example, you have a currency of your own, don't you, Melanie?
There's a currency, yes, that we've issued, and it's traded on our exchange and also on other exchanges. And as far as I understand, we are the only world besides Second Life that has achieved being traded on several outside independent exchanges. Yes,
Right.
we have.
Also, I mean, as a grid too, you mentioned a minute ago, you charge people for uploads, and I know you were telling me the other day that you have a specific thing with charging for uploads that to eliminate copy bossing, for example. But as a grid, presumably you make money out of the upload feeds as well. Again, like Second Life, so that anything you're uploading onto the servers.
No, the cost for the uploads is minimal, and this is really not there to make any money off it. In fact, when a creator approaches us, somebody who's already got an established portfolio of creations, we give them what's called upload credits. They're just like real credits, only you can only spend them for uploading, and those upload credits, they're free. So you don't really have to pay for the uploads at all if you're a creator. No, the rationale behind having an upload fee as opposed to having no upload fee at all is that there is something that we call the casual copypotting. And that is when a regular user, John Doe, comes from Second Life and we don't have upload fees in place, the first thing that happens is boom, they stand there in their full Second Life glory. Then you tell them, where'd you get that? Well, yeah, I got that from Second Life. How'd you get it here? Oh, we used the viewer to export it there. Do you know that that's illegal? No, why should it be? I bought it. It's mine. So we introduced upload fees to deter these people from uploading their Second Life appearance immediately and rather use the freebies we provide. And once they learn about the difference between other worlds and Second Life and the interactions and the legal ramifications of moving things back and forth, then
that's something I brought up to
we have definitely achieved something there. That's the reason why we did this. So creators can always get upload credits, and they're not limited to a certain set amount. We've got creators, prolific creators, who have done huge lots of work, who've gone through millions of upload credits.
I have a suggestion, and this is something that I gave to Ian over at Kitely. Actually, yesterday we were talking about this with the new options that they're offering content creators for whatever to migrate stuff out. And my suggestion was to add a validation of receipts. If you're at another grid and the content creator moves over from, say, SL to any of the other grids, if you offer the option for them to be able to validate the prior purchases, then when I go over there, if say or whatever content creator was over there, I can go to a kiosk and just go validate and have it validate what I've already purchased. Like I hold the receipt because just like real life, I can.
There are several vending systems that can do this, and one of those vending systems, the Casper system, is actually available in Avination, and we have residents, creators who actually do this, and will deliver an item that they bought in SL to the Avination avatar.
Right. So if on the bigger scheme here on Hypergrid and everything else, if this was a universal thing, and you guys were waving that banner, saying, "Hey, not only content creators, you can do this, but also you're not leaving your customers out in the dark by making them start from scratch," and you made that and you told the actual people this, like this stuff was existing, then yeah, I would be in Hypergrid and all that stuff tomorrow. I wouldn't even look back. If I can go in there and smack my hand on the button and say redeliver my stuff, that I've purchased, don't make me rebuy it all from scratch, then yeah, I would be there.
Obviously, the micropayment economy that's Virtual Worlds is one that is based on the create one, sell many concept. And unfortunately, in the opinion of many content creators, that means resell it and resell it and resell it again. There's a few ones that decided that bought it, it's yours. Or I have seen that model as well, that they say there's a fixed fee, and with this fixed fee, you get the right to everything you bought from me in SL, also in Avination. There's, for instance, textures for us. They do it like that. If you buy textures in Second Life and you pay the fixed fee one time, then you can get those textures anywhere.
Textures I can see as content, but as for clothing and stuff, just should be redelivered.
Yeah. Actually, the receipt thing sounds like a very good idea. But let's this is a good segue into something else I wanted to bring up. Actually, the Hypergrid. Now, first of all, I'm going to, Melanie, Avination had a very big presence at the OpenSim Community Convention. or conference. I forget what the full name was now. The other week, and you do donate code to OpenSim as well, even though your own grid runs on a vastly customized version of what was the original OpenSim architecture, I guess. I know that I tackled you or one of your representatives at one point saying, so, when are you going to be on the hypergrid? And of course, your answer quite obviously is, when the security is in place that we can be. So it's sort of related to the discussion we just had. Forgets about the Exodus and Linden Labs poaching copyrights and stuff like that. Let's just think of the creators for a minute. Now, when I'm on the Hypergrid, for example, I'll go into OS Grid, or I used to be with Jacadia. My Hypergrid avatar goes around everywhere, picks up freebies, puts them in his inventory. Most of the time, I can then rest them on another Hypergrid-enabled OpenSim. Not always. Some of them do only allow me to use them on the grid. I'll match it in when I get them. Obviously, a lot of the code in this respect has yet to be refined. But what Avination is very much, in a broad sense, similar to Second Life, in that it is self-contained at the moment. And I'm quite keen to know what criteria OpenSim will have to meet before you would allow people to hypergrid in or hypergrid out of the Avination sim, because I know that it's something you would like to be able to do in the long term when the criteria is met. So maybe you could tell me a bit more about that.
Well, one of them is the work that we have spearheaded on the export flag. You might have heard of that. It's something that in my position as an OpenSim core developer, as well as one of the Singularity team, I was able to get the first real close viewer server collaboration going. That's since extended to other people in the core team and other people in Singularity. The export flag is a flag that can be set just like copy or modify, and it marks that an item is allowed to be exported. So that's one of the steps in the right direction, because we need this implemented and fully working for Avination to even consider the hypergrid. But there's another issue there. It's more of a technical and low-level nature. At the moment, hypergrid requires to pretty much open up the asset servers to the world. That means the entire asset servers, not just those assets that are in people's suitcases. The suitcase is a special folder that you take with you on the hypergrid. No, but actually the grid has to expose all its assets. So if somebody gathers a UUID from a script, say Inworld, they could directly connect to the asset server with a carefully crafted packet and retrieve the source code for that script. That is unacceptable to us. And that security hole, it's about the size of a barn door, needs to be closed.
Maria, this week we had the new release of the Open Simulator code, which was the same one that, in combination with the Singularity Viewer and was sort of prototyped. It was running on the grid that they used for the community conference. Do you know if you're much more expert on the ins and outs of this? Is there anything? Do you know of anything substantial in the new release that would address people like Melanie's concerns?
The specific security issue that she mentioned hasn't been addressed, and then I guess it's up to her and the other core developers to get that fixed.
Well, I think that might happen next summer if I see Krista, that's Diva, again in real life, and we have another session where we stick our heads together and make the Hypergrid 2.0. The current release actually mostly focuses on resolving long-standing teleport issues.
It does support export permission settings, which are server-based. So even if you use a viewer that doesn't acknowledge export permissions yet, you still won't be able to take stuff off grid if it has the export permission.
Correct.
And then it has a whole bunch of stability changes. Diva Krista Lopez said that there were almost over 900 different commits that they made in preparation for the conference to make it as stable as possible, to make teleports as reliable as possible.
Yes, several load tests a week actually, with several hundred avatars were done. It was a huge lot of work.
And it was amazing
I
amount
spent
of
several
work.
weeks on those. Yeah.
Yes, in a very concentrated time period. All the server developers, plus they got the viewer developers involved, which now means that we have a fix to the 4096 bug, which to me is the single best thing that I've been waiting for. I mean, I know Melanie
LaPiscean did that, right?
Yes. Well, it was a group effort. Several people contributed little pieces identifying where it was and what it wasn't. And he finally made the final commit, and it's now in Singularity Viewer and Kakua Viewer, and it should show up in Firestorm at the next release. And to me, this is the thing that I care about most, to make Hypergrid travel easier.
Yes, because see, with OS Grid being rooted at 10,000 and most other grids being rooted at 1,000, that actually made a huge difference. That's why OS Grid had regions at 4,000, 4,000, and 1,000, 1,000 called Jump 4,000 and called Jump 1,000, and you had to like teleport to one of those regions before hypergridding out. So that was a real bother. That is a pain that I am also so glad that's been removed.
When I want to move around, I just want to go. I just want to go there in one jump, not 20.
It also made it really difficult to set up a hyperport because only a third of your destinations would be accessible to you. So in Hyperica, I had this really weird jury-rigged workaround where the gate would pass you along to the next gate, pass you along to the next gate, then send you on to the destination. The logistics of keeping these gates coordinated and working meant that they were crashing constantly. And I'm going to be so happy to get rid of all of them and put a big sign up front saying, God, go get a Singularity Viewer, go get an up-to-date viewer. And then
it'll be in all the viewers eventually because they've been picking up our changes quite nicely.
Yes.
I don't know why it wasn't done before, but I think I really started something when I joined that viewer channel and started approaching those people about doing actual work on the viewer and chipped in on solving some of the problems there, apart from making the viewer fit for my own grid. Obviously, the Avination viewer is a rebranding of the Singularity viewer. We call it the Avination viewer because it's easier for our documentation, but it's not a secret. Avination viewer is Singularity with few changes. Most of these changes have been filtered back into core Singularity, so if you're more comfortable with Singularity, you can use that in Avination without any restrictions.
Well, I can tell you why it hasn't been fixed.
I know. I was reading.
It was tricky to find, and also for all of these viewers, they have hundreds of thousands of active users in Second Life, and they get 25,000 maximum active users in OpenSim. You respond to what your users need, and they were primarily focused on features that would be relevant to Second Life.
Yes, obviously. I've run into that a lot of times when I tried talking to the Firestorm developers. I was pretty much ignored. It's like we don't care about OpenSim. We care about Second Life. All our team is Second Life users.
Right. Except now that they're forked and they have an OpenSim version, so I'm really happy to see that too.
Well, yes, but the OpenSim version really isn't maintained as well as the Second Life version.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to be honest, there's complications. I noticed I have when I downloaded the OpenSim version of Firestorm to see what it was like, it overwrote my Second Life version. So I had to, it didn't make a separate folder for OS Firestorm and SL Firestorm. But it's interesting. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I think it was an event on a blog during the week, and it was being held in the Inworlds, which is yet another walled grid, so to speak. And another favourite for Creative Exodus, for that matter. And they were advertising an event, and it was so peculiar because they said it said click here to go, to come to the event, and underneath there was one button that said click here if you are using Inworld's viewer, and there was another button next to it saying click here if you're using any other viewer. So obviously they had it set up so that the actual link to get you in there had a different, it's like the Slills in Second Life. It had some kind of different launch code depending on the viewer.
Yes,
people are going to come in on.
There is a somewhat sketchy attempt of Linden Labs to make the viewer base code more generic. However, what they did is not necessarily enough by far, and they also made some changes there that would break existing functionality. So all the third-party viewers that I know of reverted those Linden changes in favor of the changes that they had before. I wish Lindens would finally adopt the Hypergrid manager everybody else uses.
Yeah.
Linden Labs' big mistake was releasing the viewer code to begin with, in my opinion.
Well, if they hadn't,
if you're going to have a shared experience, if you're going to have a shared experience in any of these grids, people have to be logging on to the same thing to see the same thing. When you have multi-viewers in any given grid, it's rare that you're going to have a shared experience across the crowd because of that very aspect.
Yeah, well, I think it's safe to say that when the code was open sourced, it was a subsection of the whole Linden Lab code. It wasn't everything. It was the core code.
It was the entire viewer.
This was back in the day when Philip Rosedale was CEO. It was very close to the days when Linden Labs were actually experimenting with cross-grid teleports to their own. Predating the hypergrid, it was a different kind of thing, but I did one test where I got out of Second Life and logged into, I can't remember what it was. It might have been Hypergrid, I'm not sure. But
well, Linden Labs did have an idea where they could you could download your own server, just like OpenSim, only it would connect to the Second Life grid and databases and asset servers, and you would be in control of your own content. The reason that was shot down was that very reason. It's because you would be in control of your content and not Linden Labs.
Well, there was actually a deployed release of Behind the Firewall thing that they did with IBM.
With the enterprise system. Yeah.
I thought the reason they shut it. I thought the reason they shut it down was because it was incredibly overpriced, had very little functionality compared to OpenSim, and they couldn't sell it.
Well, the enterprise one, certainly that was the reason.
Yeah.
As for the idea of jumping across grids, I mean, I think that was shut down too by Mark Kingdon. I think when he came on board as being, a waste of time and effort.
Well, the idea was that Linden Labs didn't want to be a server farm. They wanted to put all those resources on the individual's machine. They wanted to be a technology and content provider. They can't be a content provider if all the content is scattered across the world on individual machines.
Well, I think what they're talking about Linden Lab here. I mean, clearly the move toward the server-side baking and all this stuff is to move stuff onto the server so that they can, I mean, I don't know this for a fact, but I suspect they want to deploy a lightweight client at some point so that the more that's done server-side, of course, and it's not in the viewer, Second Life on the iPad, if everything's being rendered by the server, it's far more practical than if you've got a whole lot.
Well, it's funny you should say that now, because that's exactly why I say that a cinematic approach to virtual worlds is more scalable. In other words, if you can put the people there at it, but not, all the lag and all the assets and all of that, then you can get them there.
But you can't get them there in a way that they see each other, so it loses the experience. So why have a virtual world and not just a screen?
Did any of you ever try? I did, and a couple of people I went with did, and it worked very well actually, although it was short-lived. So they did a sort of Second Life on the web experiment, well over a year ago now, using a service called Gakai, and basically. You went to a web page and you downloaded a fairly lightweight plugin, and it puts Second Life on a web page for you. But the difference between this and the sort of thing that Pelican Crossing used to do, and that people like Spot On have copied, was that it's not taking an embed of any client and sticking it on the web. It's actually a lightweight view of its own. And what was actually happening was that although to all intents and purposes on a high-speed connection you felt like you were in Second Life, it was actually streaming. In other words, there wasn't a two-way, an immediate two-way thing going on like there is in Second Life.
No, you say server side.
I'm asking.
The way the archive system works is that it takes the computer or a virtual machine running your actual Second Life viewer, and then it streams that viewer to you. So for every additional user, it requires an additional machine running an additional viewer for it, which is very difficult expensive to scale. Because if you have 100,000 users logging in through this, you're going to have 100,000 versions of the viewer running, and viewers are
that's like unicasting. Yeah, you've got everyone that logs on is a separate connection, and that's unicasting, and you keep referring to it as a stream. It is a stream, and I think that this server side appearance, server side rendering, or whatever you want to call it, I think that in the future, and this is just my vision, that this will act as the encoder for this cinematic approach, will be the server-side appearance. That will let people multicast instead of unicasting. And right now, everybody is unicasting into these grids, into these virtual worlds, when they should be multicasting.
Well, server-side appearance is something completely different. It only refers to baking. Baking is currently done, or was done up to server-side appearance by the OpenGL on the client computer, leading to problems when the viewer was used on things like, for instance, the secondary screen of a multi-screen setup. Now, server-side baking does the baking on what is essentially a headless viewer that does only baking. It's called the bake server. That's got nothing to do with cinematic approaches or anything like that. And I say it again, the so-called cinematic approach in multicasting means that the contact between members of the audience is lost. You look like to you it looks like you're alone, and that is not what people want. People don't want to be alone in a sim watching a show. People want to be part of a crowd that they can experience,
or have a friend next to them that they can interact with, to go to the concert with. Otherwise, might as well watch it on a video.
Exactly.
But what I think is going to happen with viewers, and I'm already seeing this happening, is that browsers are getting much more functional with HTML5 and WebGL, and we're starting to see, like, for example, Cloud Party puts the entire viewer into the browser, and the same thing's happening with a Pixie viewer, which is...
Well, that's the fast JavaScript engines that have been coming out. They've been pioneered in Chrome. They've been taken up in Firefox and Safari. And basically, in the next generation of browsers, they can be assumed to exist. The same goes for WebGL and HTML5 rendering. So yes, essentially what it is a scaled-down version of OpenGL that's driven by JavaScript and only prepared by the server. So that...
and it also works on tablets. So
it means you can get rid of the fat viewer and still not have all the processing and imaging load on the server instead, but instead it's something that the browser has code for and does for you.
This reminds me of the thing I forgot when Tara was talking at the beginning. She mentioned the Google Google Designer, whatever, which is HTML5 compliant. Most other things which I haven't fully looked at yet, but it does sound like it's going to encourage authoring in HTML5, and maybe find better ways of embedding rich input onto the web. But that's an aside. I've downloaded it. I've yet to explore it. But certainly things like that. I mean, ubiquity on I think it's essential now, especially on larger size tablets, not phones so much, but larger size tablets, that if worlds like Second Life, Avination, OpenSim exist, we really need to be able to get into them fairly adequately, in lightweight clients.
There's one thing about clients that has sometimes been mentioned, but is actually currently still largely ignored with the fat clients that we have today is that most people don't need the building tools. Most people don't need the creation tools. There are lots of things in the viewer that are being tracked regardless of whether you actually use them or not that take up additional processing power. The viewer, like these web viewers that are now coming up, is a purely visitors viewer. You can't build with it. You can maybe res a box to put something on, but you cannot actually do original creations. It has no mesh upload capability and whatever that makes it so lightweight that it will actually run in JavaScript.
I used to agree with you, Melanie, until I saw the Cloud Party Viewer. It has built-in building functionality, and it's fully
but not
HTML5.
Not on the level of what the Second Life viewer has. I've tried it.
Right. Well, yeah, Second Life has much more advanced building abilities.
And much of that stuff is based on tracking certain things that the Cloud Party Viewer just simply cannot track because it's not part of WebGL. That makes things like placing prims or placing objects quite difficult to do in a sort of reasonable way. But it makes the resulting viewer so much more lightweight. So that I think that serious content creators who do original creation rather than just resing something they bought or got will use a fat client, and viewers will use the browser embedded viewer. Like people viewing a website use a browser, and people creating websites use Dreamweaver and things.
Yes,
I think I think there's space for both. I mean, I'll give an example here. It's vaguely unrelated, but I spend most of my day going through news feeds and twittering and posting links here and there or everywhere. Stuff I edit in terms of I consider it important, and I just don't Twitter the rest. But I do it all on the iPad now. I'm very rarely at the workstation, but I save some stuff from the iPad, bookmark it so that I can then recall it when I come to the workstation. And basically, I can do most things I need to do on something like the iPad. What I can't do, I've got the software to do it on the iPad, but I can't do video editing on the iPad. It's just not big enough tactile area for me to handle. So I will come to the workstation for that, and I can conceive of, I may be out and about, don't do that much, but might be. And I could go into a lightweight immersive world on something like the iPad in a lightweight client. And I don't expect to be able to res or do a lot of, building or stuff like that. But I would have the capacity to do it. It would have immersion. In other words, I would have the capacity to move around and have voice conversations or text conversations with people, not the heavyweight stuff that is underneath that you do all the building with, your prims and your import-export. I would expect to go to the workstation to do that heavyweight stuff. But I don't see them
I would expect it to be a heavier client with all the build tools, which would be a prosumer model geared towards people who like to produce and create. And then they'd have a lightweight for consumer publish model. You treat it like a publish model for consumers then. Just like you have gaming, where gaming itself is a publish model only. That's what the lightweight viewers are for. People who just want to go in and experience and hang out.
Exactly. I mean, if
as long as you differentiate like that, fine.
Yeah. If I could log in on the iPad and attend a conference or attend a music concert, then that would be fine. That's all I would need that for, and I'd be quite happy with lightweight client. I wouldn't want to use it to build or do anything complex, but I'd like that surface level client, as it were.
Although building on an iPad, building on a touch surface probably be a totally novel experience.
I mean, I said that.
Well, I actually often pop into it. It's got a lot more traction now, and it is immersive. We took the whole show audience there about a year ago when it came out. There's an iPad app called WiWiWo, WiWiWo, if I recall right. And you log in, and you've got most of the locations are in Spain. There's a Lincoln Memorial and some in France. And you choose a location you want to go to. It's not continuous grid as such. It's just individual locations, and a lot of it is modelled photographically. But as soon as you get in there, you can use touch, or you can use an on-world, an in-world keypad, as it were, to move forward, back, roam around the streets, meet with other people. It's got text chat and it's got voice chat, which is great because we were able to have a 2-hour show in there, just standing around talking talking. So it's got all the immersive capabilities you might want for visiting and attending something. It just hasn't got. You can't build in there, and there is no heavyweight client that allows you to build. It's purely been designed. I think it's really promoted as virtual tourism. The idea is they want to bring venues online. You choose a place you want to go to in it, and then you're free to roam around and explore it. And I think they're angling to sell, maybe get shops in, but more importantly to get local tourist bodies to support the locations. But my point is that it's an immersive world, or an immersive installation, as it were, that fulfills everything I need for the immersion, but it just doesn't have the creative things there. It's static, but it does fulfill a function.
But that level of functionality is the level that I envision would probably be the first that would be implemented on those viewers that are just around the corner for tablets. I mean, I know there's Lumia for Android tablets. I tried it. The rendering is subpar at the moment. But obviously that can be vastly improved. Network transmission speed, memory is all just a bit too small. But if not this generation of tablet, the next generations of tablets will definitely do it.
I have a question, and you guys
I
might be able
got
to help
stuck
me with
in
this.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
I was just going to add, this relates to filmmaking. I'm a member over at Cloud Party too, and I've been over there, and I'm wondering why Cloud Party, when their edition of video came on to Cloud Party, why is it that your content has to be uploaded to Cloud Party rather than them using an embedding resources of someone like Vimeo or YouTube or something like that? Okay. And along with that, if they are uploading the content to their servers and putting the strain on themselves, why aren't grids uploading this machinima content?
As part of the Best Practices in Education conference, we had to film 2 sessions in Cloud Party. And I say we, I didn't do it. It was Robustus and Duza at Metaverse TV did that bit. But it was a nightmare. They were able to get a clean interface in the end and get it all set up. But I mean, compared with what we did in Second Life, session after session, this was like a complete diversion for 2 people for 2 days setting it up. And they clearly weren't set up in the same way for that kind of thing. I've been to Cloud Party a couple of times. I mean, I actually think it's very presentable for what it is. But to be honest, you'll probably never get me going into a virtual world or an immersive space that's based on the web. I want to be in the space, and I want to be able to pull the web out from that space rather than be on the web and try and dive into a world from the web. That's interesting. That's just my preference. But I'd like. There's another subject I'd like to broach, especially where I got Maria and Melanie here. Economies here. Now, Avination, like Second Life, has its own in-world economy. I know from a discussion with you a week or so ago, Melanie, that we delved into this a bit, like to the extent Linden Lab supports the Linden currency and a whole load of possible shenanigans there. I don't know where we want to go into that too deeply. But to me, we're talking about the hypergrid and content permissions and everything. We're also in terms of the SL exodus, if we were going to call it that, is also down to content permissions and ownership of things. The hypergrid, by and large, it's taking open ownership seriously, but the general hypergrid community tends to be used to going to places where there is no. There are open sync currencies, I hasten to add, but they tend to be going to somewhere without currency, and it's sort of give and take share at the moment. So it doesn't really have a working economy. Its advantages tend to be in other areas. But Avination, on the other hand, is a working economy, isn't it? Just like Second Life.
Yes, it is.
So exactly how does that work? Because if we if everybody left Second Life because of this terrible copyright thing, they wouldn't they might end up with a load of assets. A year later, they'd probably be obsolete assets because they'd be so old. But they wouldn't actually have a world because the contract here, Will said you don't go to an ISP and expect them to own your web pages. The contract here is that you own what you build. They provide the platform, the website, if you like, the viewer. They provide the tools to help you create, a bit like you can buy Adobe tools to paint with. But the finished painting is nothing to do with the person that gave you the tools. It's yours. This is the real problem we're facing with Second Life. But it goes beyond the thing of assets, as far as I can see, and that is that the very existence of the world itself relies on that creativity and creators owning what they do, and supplement to that is it's an extension of that allows the in-world economy to run. And of course, Linden Labs, of course, have a massive in-world economy, although I gather they don't back up or support the full 100% of it. I don't know whether you want to go into that, but how in terms of Avination, how does that work? Because you're reliant on people owning their own copyright, being the creators of the world, and you're also running an economy that allows them to
well,
change.
Those two things actually are not at odds with each other. You see, the in-world economy of any world is basically based on creators selling their creations. Obviously, the ones who make the most money on the in-world economy are the creators themselves, since Avination and everybody else only charges small fees for going back and forth to the real world. In this case, it's an exchange fee because you see, virtual currency can only always be sold to other users, never back to a company. That's fiscally not possible. So basically, it's users exchanging items and money with other users. For that, it's vitally important that users are motivated to create and to sell. I don't know how Second Life could do what they've done. They shot themselves in the foot with a 12-gauge shotgun there. Creators
it's funny you should say that because I cash out linens by the 100,000s at a time. And all I know is that I get more cash out of my lindens this week than I did last week. So I would have to say that the linden economy, for whatever shape it's in or for whatever they've done to it, has, as far as a market point standpoint, is doing better this week than they were the last couple of weeks. I always cash out the same amount of lindens every time.
But if for example, Second Life shut down, right? I mean, we can assume that there'll be absolutely no warning because of currency speculation and run on the bank and all that stuff. So it's not just assets under threat. It's a virtual currency that is tradable with real world currency. This was going back. Actually, if you want.
And then you got the IRS. You got the IRS looking at your virtual currencies as an underground economy, and they want to do something with that underground economy.
Well, they're wary of bootlegging and transferring funds and stuff. But at the end of the day, the tax situation is it's up to you when you draw the money out, where the IRS come in. But back to Melanie. Sorry.
Well, one of the things that just latching on to what you said there, one of the reasons that Second Life has prevented selling of lindens to other exchanges is that obviously they now have reporting responsibilities, and they need to be able to conclusively report on who gets how much money out of Second Life so that the IRS can work with those data. So selling through third parties would actually undermine that and let people get money out of Second Life through European exchanges that don't report to the IRS, and that way you could evade taxes. So that's why they do it. We don't have this issue because we are located in the UK, and the UK still sees virtual currency as a non-currency, and there is currently no attempt to tax it.
Yeah. I mean, the tax man.
And of course, the irony in all this, as far as the money exchange business, is if somebody is really intent on laundering money using Lindens, there's always going to be a way.
Of course,
they'll cultivate a friend who's in a different place.
There's a huge culture of money laundering. Actually, we have put in so many safeguards to prevent that. Avination being used for that, and yes, we have had massive attempts.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah,
I think the government just shut down Silk Road.
I'd like to
which
get Maria.
was big on Bitcoin.
Yeah, exactly. And darkness is it's called, isn't it? Tor or something. But Manny, just to ask you, Manny, first, and maybe bring Maria in on this because she's quite a whiz on the financial sort of side of things. To what extent do you, as Avination, and I guess Linden Labs as Linden Labs, support the Inworld currencies? Obviously, it exists. It's arranged. People can buy and sell, make profits, take money out. But there has to be, I suppose it's like a nation. There has to be a kind of float of currency there so that, some nations, well, most nations seem to be in debt to some mysterious banker or other. But, if all goes potty, for example, can everybody could everybody draw out all their Lindens for cash at the same time? Would they?
No, it would not be possible because as I said, it's not fiscally possible for a company to buy back a virtual currency because that would make it a real currency. You see. So all the currencies always sold to other users, which means virtual economies, like real economies, are always dependent on constant growth, or else they have to go into debt. Now, there are no virtual banks. There's no metaverse central bank that virtual worlds that have trouble selling their currency could go to and get a loan. So it's growth, or bust. And the same is for Second Life. If Second Life came into a recession, there would be a real problem.
There's
Maria,
two solutions to that, right? So if you have a currency that lives on just one grid, this is true. The two alternatives to it are the OMC currency, which is in theory on 30 different grids. In practice, not too many people are using it. It's not being marketed at all. But the idea with the OMC is that even if your grid shuts down, you still have your OMCs in your OMC wallet, and you can spend them on other grids. So the value of the OMC currency isn't linked to any grid in particular.
On the other hand, it's linked to the issuer instead, who has to work the same way because we all operate under the same tax laws, which means that if there should be a failure on the issuer of the OMC, and we know who that is, then that would just be the same problem. If they stopped growing, that would also be the same problem.
Yes, the issuer is Vervox. This is a company that's also a Linden exchange. So for them, the OMC is such a tiny little part of their business that they're really not paying a lot of attention to it. And
the point is the use of the OMC. It's very difficult. If you use OMC on a grid and you click something to buy, a website pops up where you have to authenticate. That's the bother. It usually stifles impulse buys, so people don't use it because it results in a loss of about 30% of sales.
Yes, and they've added a wallet option to address that, where you have a small amount of money with you on hand for small purchases, so that you don't have to go to a website to authenticate it. And individual grids can set that up. But they haven't marketed this. They haven't really aggressively pushed this. They haven't signed up merchants. They haven't really done anything to build it up as a real workable currency. And the other alternative is to use PayPal, which again, like Melanie said, has the problem of requiring a website, final authentication through a website. And you can use that for your payments. And Kitely does that. In fact, they give their merchants the option of selling either in Kitely credits or in PayPal on their exchange on their
The main
marketplace.
issue with PayPal is that they have crippling fees for microcurrency transactions. Microcurrency transactions is something that PayPal just started with a few months ago. They launched it as a new product, and they lack the experience at this point, I really have to say. So the problem is that microtransactions mandate a completely different fee structure, because if something's only cost like 0.2 cents, you can't put 1 cent of a fee on it.
Yes, which is why Kitely aggregates the PayPal transactions. So the merchants and the buyers aren't spending the money like every penny isn't going through PayPal. There's the complete avatar, the total avatar shop, which is an online shop by a single merchant, also uses PayPal payments and then just delivers the content to you on your website. So there's.
I have just an interesting question, pertinent question, really, dumbass question, possibly. Would you describe PayPal as a virtual currency, or
no? PayPal is a money service business, and it's a bank in some countries.
Yes, PayPal, after it reached a certain point of size, was forced to register as a financial service institution everywhere it does business. So in the United States, it's a money transmittal business. And in other countries, it's a banking institution, because at the end of the day, you put money into PayPal, and then you or somebody else takes money out of PayPal. It's a financial institution. And whatever you call a virtual currency, if you can take money out at some point, then in effect you're dealing with a kind of financial institution.
Well, that is wrong.
It's funny. It's funny.
Buy the currency back. That's the key.
Yeah, if the currency is redeemable. I
often describe currency as being the original virtual commodity, because it's pieces of paper, it's tokenism, you never go around with your trade and barter. You never go around with your coins anymore.
The first time a Chinese wrote on a paper, "I owe you 3 cows," that was the point where the world changed.
It's
credit.
It's a stored value mechanism, and in fact, in the United States, virtual currencies come under the same laws as apply to, say, gift cards, because you buy these things for a certain amount of money, and then you can either redeem it for goods at a certain point, or you can redeem them for cash at a certain point. And if you can only redeem it for goods, that's a currency that's a closed currency. It's not redeemable. If you can also redeem it for cash, then that card better be backed by a financial institution. And you'll notice...
This is where
this is what I write about. This is what I write about in my day job. So when I'm not writing about virtual worlds, I write about payment systems.
This is exactly. This is actually why, a particular reason I thought you'd be good to be here today. Because one thing, again, I just try and put this in layman's language. I mean, we all know that in the real world these days, if everybody demanded physical money, in other words, bits of gold or copper or whatever of a certain value, out of their bank at the same time, there isn't actually enough money in the world for us all to draw the money out of the banks at once. So there is some non-existent money floating around that seems to be in accounts all over the place. But coming back to the virtual world, what actually I think about is, if I've got, I don't know, say £500 in value in Second Life, right? And Second Life disappears. Now I'm going to lose all my assets and my virtual goods and stuff, because they're actually only usable in Second Life anyway. But we would almost certainly, as you said, Melanie, when we were talking the other day, there would be absolutely no warning if something like Second Life shut down because of the run on the bank phenomenon. And it does worry me that my virtual currency is not actually backed up or supported to any great extent. On a day-by-day basis, I could take a bit out, I could put a bit in, as do lots of other people. But if there was a major run on the bank, or even the other way around...
well, the thing that you term virtual currency is actually a limited license game token without intrinsic value. That's how it's defined. Limited license game token without intrinsic value. That means it's worth nothing.
It's like if you had a coupon to McDonald's and McDonald's shut down. It becomes a worthless piece of paper.
Yeah.
The whole idea of a virtual world, a virtual economy, virtual anything is a gamble. And the rule to gambling is you don't invest or spend money that you can't afford to lose, or you don't take away from the real assets of your life to do this gambling. And that's what this is. Just like this toss is a gamble. Mao says himself he's a little uncertain, he's a little unsure, but his gamble, his investment isn't really that great, plus or minus a few bucks either way, either every day, that he can't afford to play. But like the rest of us, he's gambling, and all this is a gambling. So you have to take that into consideration when you're making serious decisions about, taking large sums of money or investing largely in any virtual anything.
I always recommend to my readers, never keep more money in a balance, in a virtual currency, than you can afford to lose. And I guess now I should say the same thing for content. Never upload more content into Second Life than you can afford to lose to their new TOS.
Or willing to share with the world.
Well said. Well said. Yeah, well said.
Lose the rights on then would be the right way to say it. That you're willing to lose the rights on.
Yep.
It depends. I think it's a decision everybody has to make in terms of value. If people are taking part in the economy in the virtual worlds and they're still able to create something and then sell it to other avatars and make some money, and then, as Maria says, draw it out as soon as possible. Don't leave it lying around in a bank that may not be there tomorrow. You'd think that the bank would still be there because, if a real world company goes bankrupt, sure, your gift tokens and stuff become more or less useless, but liquidators move in and, there's always some money to be redistributed, even if it's a small percentage. But
because they have buildings and equipment and their own computers and inventory in the warehouse. If you come into Second Life and you try to liquidate Second Life, maybe they might have some servers, but the secured creditors are going to be in line first to get that money, and people who have virtual currencies are probably going to be far, far down the list after everybody else who's owed money.
Let me ask you something about this money thing. Hang on that. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, no, to get back to what I was saying, I come in, I can create something, I can create a commodity, I can sell it, I can make money out of those sales, then I can judiciously export that money, every time it's accumulating. Anything I don't need to spend in World, all the money I have in World, for example, is actually come to me in World. I don't put any money or hard cash in. It's all stuff that's earned or whatever inside the environment, but I'm just too lazy to take it out. I mean, I keep thinking, well, there's going to be expenditure down the line here and what have you. But it's I think creators will still, until it becomes an obstacle for them, a lot of them will still work on that principle. And I'll give an example. I work in the real world. I know artists, who sit down with their watercolors or their oil paints. They do artwork. Now, some of them don't want to put that stuff online because they don't want it neat. Others see an intrinsic value in having their portfolio online, and the rationale, in the terms of the web at least, has always been that there is no value to a relatively low resolution and pixelated JPEG of my artwork. People can download it, keep it in their collection, nick it, because they cannot do anything with it that has a competing value with what I do with it in the real world. I sell reproduction rights of a high resolution scan, or sell the original to somebody who can put on their wall. There's different aspects of marketing involved here. So putting the portfolio, putting a decent resolution picture up, but just not decent enough that it can be otherwise exploited, is a very safe option because people downloading it and making copies because it likes it. It helps make your work viral. Yet those copies don't impede your normal commercial exploitation of your own work. So thinking of uploads to Second Life, I can say, well, if I'm uploading to Second Life or being in Second Life and creating something, if its value is as a virtual commodity and I make a nice living out of it, thank you for some people, especially if they're in the third world, for example, then they will continue to pursue that. It will only be when, if Linden Labs suddenly grabbed it and sold it on another marketplace somewhere with no commission coming back, then that would be a very serious betrayal. But otherwise, I'll probably continue making shirts or whatever I do. On the other hand, if I have architected a hugely complex, showcase building piece of architecture, done it offline, and I want to import it and res it in World, I would be very dubious about doing that now, because I might be an architect who spent a lot of time faithfully recreating or creating, per se, a magnificent building, be there is restoring, like the clip we showed at the beginning, where it's a real world building that have been restored virtually, or whether it's a piece of grand architecture that I want to make money out of as an architect. Now, a few weeks ago, I would have no qualms about bringing that into Second Life to demonstrate it and say, come walk through this, admire it, tell me what you think. But now, I couldn't dare upload that building without Linden Labs saying, oh, we like that building, we'll have it, and we'll set it on.
Yeah.
I think it depends on what you're doing and where its value is.
My question was, we were talking about currency and money and the crashing of Second Life and, what happens to our assets. And my question is, once you can transfer your Lindens into cash and without taking the cash out of Second Life maintains a balance, a U.S. balance, which they use, just like real life transactions to pay tiers and I'm sure that they make money, with those balances setting around. But in an SL crash, what becomes of your SL dollars? And in this toss, how can they take possession of your SL dollars that they're holding? Let's say you cashed them out.
If you were holding Lindens, they would be gone. If you hold a US dollar balance, then you would have a claim against the company, which may or may not be satisfiable. Maybe you get a half a cent on the dollar.
Yeah.
Well, they look at you and they say they're tokens. They go, well, it was never real money anyway. It was tokens, and you have no reasonable expectation of keeping your tokens. Plus, we own the tokens, not you.
No, he's talking about the actual dollars. He's talking about the actual dollars,
right?
No, if Second Life owes you actual dollars because you have $100 in your account, say, there's a lot of other creditors that Second Life will probably also owe money to. So it'd be a question of where you are in order of the creditors. Like Melanie said, you might get a few pennies on the dollar when all the assets are divided up.
Yeah, that's back to the.
So even your U.S. balance is a gamble then in a virtual.
Yes, it is.
But it's no different.
It's a gamble if you put your money into an established bank. Look at Iceland.
Yeah, it's no different. It's no different
Look at Greece.
than the gamble of paying some regular bill in advance.
Right.
If you pay a bill if you pay your phone, if you throw $150 at the phone company in advance, and a week later they go belly up. It's no different than if Second Life went belly up and you had U.S. dollars credit in your.
Some small European power companies give you significant discounts if you pay for a year in advance, but I don't know if they're going to be around in a year.
Same premise.
I suppose really you can think of it as investment, can't you? Where every investment has got risk elements attached to it. So
well, yes, there's investments, there's high risk and low risk.
If we continue to participate in a virtual economy, then it's investment. There's always the risk it may just disappear. But you just pursue it, as a kind of risk thing. and just continue doing it that way. But I'm very curious about the law of some of these situations because I suspect you, Maria, know more about American law, whereas Melanie, you did mention earlier, for example, you're based over here where I am in the UK. And, things like the value of virtual currencies is perceived differently. Did you say like America it's perceived as tokens, whereas in the UK it's not. We haven't got a qualifying criteria.
No, the tokens is actually a wording that language was taken from an early Second Life TOS when they were still very explicit. Now they are very much more legalese there. But in the UK, and in Europe, as far as I know, currently, in-game currencies do not count as currencies, and they don't fall under tax. And in the UK, in the US, they're actually going the other route and trying to make them equal to real dollars and make them taxable. And I just fear the day where they get the idea that they could get 6.5% sales tax or whatever it is these days on in-world transactions. But the way I know the IRS, that will come. I mean, the Infernal Revenue Service never sleeps. We know that.
No, the tax comes in when you have a relationship with a vendor. So when you buy the currency from Second Life, you might have to pay sales tax. And when
yes, that's the case currently. But if Lindens would be elevated to be a real currency, then actually that would be a currency exchange and tax-free, whereas the transaction within the world would then be taxable.
Yes,
different kind of taxation.
Right. That's if you have a fully redeemable currency that's fully interactive, like say a PayPal
bidirectionally traded currency, then that would be the case. But anyway, the only difference between an investment and gambling is the degree of chance.
Yes. In the United States,
I don't gamble.
and a lot of speculation.
In the United States, you can have a purely fictional currency inside a game. Like if you're playing Mario Brothers and you get gold coins, even if you become a billionaire in Mario Brothers, it's purely fictional. It's not going to go anywhere. If you play Farmville, and there's two kinds of money in Farmville. There's a purely fictional money, and there's the Farmville bucks that you can actually pay with money. And they keep them separated because the laws are different about them.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. The ones that are not redeemable at all, they're also termed space bucks.
Yeah, and so in the third level of currency is the one that you can redeem, and for a grid that has a purely fictional currency, you can't buy it and you can't sell it. They have zero legal problems. Like if you had a video game with gold coins dropping out of the sky. If you have a currency that you can buy from the company, but you can't redeem it for real money, it's a one-way, inbound thing. Then, which I guess in theory Second Life is, because you can't get the money back from Second Life directly, only from an exchange. I'm not sure how long they're going to be able to justify that since they own the exchange. But if the currency is, you can only spend it with that vendor, then it becomes a prepaid card, like a prepaid gift card. And those laws apply with the prepaid gift cards. And there's a limit to how much money you can have on a prepaid card, and there's a limit to how you redeem it. And then if you have full redeemability, then you're in a PayPal situation. You're a money transmitter, or you're a bank, and you better get registered as one.
That's a bit like me with the iPad. I just go into the supermarket and I buy a £15 card to spend on apps, and then buy another one when I've used it all up. It's
exactly.
There's no way I get it back except by paying for apps, of course. But it's still real money I'm spending. But it's all one way.
Well, exactly. Exactly. There's the point. The same thing goes for virtual currencies. You said there's no way you can get it back. Wrong. You can sell it to someone else who wants to buy apps with it.
Yes, you can sell your iTunes card on eBay. And it's not a big target of regulators, because anybody who buys that card can only use it to buy apps or songs or whatever. They can't translate into they can't just redeem it for cash. So it's not really a way of transmitting money. So so as long as the third party exchange of it is is kind of like ad hoc. It just happens on eBay somewhere. There's nothing you can do about it. How can you stop people from doing it? You can go to a back alley and trade these things. But if you're run the exchange yourself and you support the exchange and you provide APIs to the exchange and you're really encouraging the secondary market, that is a legal gray area. Right now it's legal, but how much? I mean, it's a way to evade to provide a redeemable currency without actually redeeming it, and I don't know how much longer that's going to stay up with the courts. Yeah. So that applies much later.
Total my.
Yeah, and this is the critical issue with Second Life, because they own that exchange. The only place where you can redeem your Second Life Linden dollars is through the Linden exchange. You can't use a third party exchange right now to sell your Lindens. You can only use the official Linden exchange. And so they can't say, oh, it's happening in the alleys, it's happening on eBay, it's outside of our control, what can we do? People will be people. Yeah, you can say that if it's, if you're very, very hands off. But if you're running the exchange, especially if you're propping up the exchange rate, so that you're involved in it, then it's going to get harder. And I don't know how long they're going to be able to say this. It may last for decades, or it may, be months. Because regulators have other things to look at right now, like keeping their jobs and so forth. So,
and getting paid themselves, I believe.
Yeah, exactly, and even getting paid. So they're not. This is like the last thing they're worrying about right now. There's much bigger issues. There's the Silk Road type of stuff where it's like massive amounts of horrible things happening. And so compared to that, the Second Life exchange is so minor that they might never get around to it. And for the smaller grids especially, they also might never get around to it.
When you say you refer to the Second Life exchange, it's like a self-contained unit that is supported, backed up by Linden Labs, the company.
Right.
It as an exchange, as an enterprise, so to speak, because they make money on the exchange. Mm-hmm. Is do different regulations apply to the governance of the exchange that would if Linden Labs collapsed or Second Life at least shut down, would Linden Labs have obligations under the to maintain their would differ to the exchange subdivision, I suppose, of Linden Lab than the general corporate assets.
Well, there is a gray area actually at the point where one could possibly argue that already placed orders would need to be fulfilled. But as I said, it's a gray area. And if they shrugged and said, sorry, the exchange has no depth left, then you'd just be SOL.
Yep.
I'm thinking of, I forget who it was, but it was one of those high street shops in the UK that went under some time ago, or went into liquidation, I should say.
Well, what's UK went into liquidation?
Well, there was a big fuss because it was one of these stores that gave out vouchers. Right? Mm-hmm. And people were queuing outside the shops that had gone into liquidation, trying to spend these vouchers, and eventually they were able to, but initially they couldn't. Yet they could still go into the shop and pay hard cash for the products that were being liquidated. So their vouchers were valueless, but their cash was still wanted, and they were still grabbing their cash for products, and so.
Well, that's because that's the way liquidation works. Vouchers are liability, whereas stock is assets.
Yep.
Since liabilities can no longer be served by a company that is in insolvency, whereas assets can still and will still be sold off. Because the company is in receivership, that means, it only receives.
Yeah, once you declare bankruptcy, the people you owe money to are supposed to stop calling you every 5 minutes demanding it. You just
well,
say
but
I'm in
that's
bankruptcy.
Chapter 11 in the U.S.
Yeah. Yes, the laws are different in different countries. Yes, but if in general, when you declare bankruptcy, the people you owe money to are supposed to step back and give you a chance to reorganize or go out of business or whatever, and then then they'll come in and see what's left.
I think
I know the UK also has a bankruptcy law.
guard that virtual currency, and if you get it, once you've accumulated a few lindens, if you don't need them to spend in world, I think the idea is you get them out. Don't keep a balance in there. And at the end of the day, it's all speculation and gambling. But the irony of this, in perspective, is a few years ago when gambling was banned in Second Life, when actually you consider Second Life is a gambling platform. Strange the way these things get interpreted.
Yes.
So
anyway,
don't keep a six-figure Linden account. Don't keep 6 numbers going on there. Just cash it out and keep it going.
Yeah, exactly. Be cautious. Be prudent. Whatever. Well, let's. We've been at it. We are always at this a long time. Once a good conversation starts, we get at it, and we've been at it from there on, and getting on for 90 minutes now.
Could I ask one more question, Mal?
Sure. Yeah, sure. Sure. Yeah, that's the idea. Yeah.
And I'm kind of curious between Second Life and OpenSim on this issue, and that is one of account management. Now, you're talking about you can buy and sell your tokens to whoever you want. What about selling your whole account, all your assets, your inventory, your avatar, your lindens, your everything? And in Second Life, that's really not permitted. And I'm wondering in OpenSim how, and Melanie could probably answer this better than anybody. What is your viewpoints on account management on your grid?
In Avination, the TOS says that it's not allowed to transfer an account to another natural person. The selling of accounts mandates also the selling of everything in the account, which if it's no transfer, the creator could have intended to mean just one natural person. So we're sort of bound by that. Other grids may handle it differently, but obviously they might be in violation of real-world laws.
The problem is that it can be difficult to enforce if there's no real-world contact information associated with an account, which many grids don't require. But even big companies have a problem with this. World of Warcraft has a problem with people creating accounts, leveling them up, and then selling them on eBay, for example.
I think that's especially in the game world, but even in the virtual environments, the more serious ones, I don't really see a problem with that. I mean, because it's a totality of sale. You give up your name, you give up your password, you give up all your assets, be they virtual goods.
Basically,
all
the
asset itself is the character. That's the asset.
And somebody takes over the character and everything you got, and along with
payment method, that's
right.
The big thing. The payment method would change. You keep everything the same, and there wouldn't be any knowledge that you even own the account other than the IP and the payment. How they've been getting paid.
Yeah, I must admit, I was thinking with a free account, then there's no trace anyway. But yeah, you're right. There's IP, and there's also if you had.
Well, I don't think people are interested in buying free accounts too much.
Tell me,
but there wouldn't be anything. There wouldn't be anything to stop someone from, from
what is the
from changing the payment information.
Or what is the criteria for Melanie? What's the criteria with Avination? Do you have free accounts and paid accounts, or do you just have free accounts? Or
in Avination, generally all accounts are free accounts. We don't have a premium level, and once we find something that we can offer as added value to make a premium level make sense, we would have one. But at this moment, every user account is a free account.
Yeah, that's called common sense. Thank you, Melanie.
But
we need somebody like that.
I know there are some people who would think that. I think there are some people who think we should offer Avination homes. But I said no.
That makes no sense at all.
No.
I mean, none of that stuff. Somebody needs to talk to Linden Lab about
when
that.
the others did that.
Right. Even with a free account, if you wanted to create accounts for resale, you would create an alt. It's a free account. You would give them money to spend on stuff if you wanted to like buy stuff for that account. You would do whatever you needed to create that character. There's no payment information on file. All you have is like the IP address, but really IP addresses change all the time for people anyway. And so if you sell it to somebody else, I mean, who would know?
It's not something that's really enforceable, and Second Life, as well as everybody else, is basically in a position of having to respond to people claiming things. Like, for instance, the claim someone sold an account would then be investigated, and if anybody there accuses someone of, for instance, using sale of an account to illegally transfer virtual items that they are the creator of, that would be something doesn't fall under DMCA, but it falls under copyright law. Then and only then do we really have a cause to act. So unless it's abused, we don't really bother.
I don't find the issue being with content. I find the issue being with land asset more than anything. And OpenSim probably doesn't have the same thing as Second Life, where Second Life has went through pricing levels and they have grandfathered land. Now, that makes this account worth money, because if you transfer the land, it goes back up to whatever the current price is for that land. So you have to stay that person.
Actually has a grandfathered land as well. And we have pretty much
that price.
Yes, we have pretty much the same thing.
Be that person.
In OpenSim, there's no startup fee for buying new land, and in general, prices for land, in general, on average, are dropping.
Well, there are grids actually that do charge a setup fee. I don't know of any grids that have a premium requirement to buy land, but I know that there are setup fees charged.
But it's not like $1,000 per region. No, it might be like 50 or 25.
Like beyond the ridiculous is beyond the pale when they started.
The point was account management, and the only reason I really see for account management isn't so much the inventory as it would be land holdings and assets where these prices were less than the going market. That makes the contract, or that makes the account worth something, you see. And to keep that grandfathered pricing, you have to stay that person. So if you buy that account, you're that person, you keep that grandfather clause. That in itself is what kind of, I guess, would defraud Linden Labs from, because in their rules, if the land transfers, it goes to the current price. And essentially, if you purchase someone's account and they have grandfathered contracts with Linden Lab, then you have kind of defrauded Linden Labs, I guess, in selling that account.
Mm-hmm. You know, I suddenly realized this could be a whole nightmare under virtual property and copyright, though. So I'm just imagining that I create an alt, right? I over a period of time, I make all the costuming and everything else to, let's say, make this alt a photorealistic, absolutely spot-on, first-class replica of the Batman. Yeah. Let's say that, I forget who owns Marvel now. I think it's Warner. Let's say they just ignore me because I'm just role-playing the Batman and I'm no threat. I'm just one avatar in a world who's doing his best to be the Batman. Mm-hmm. But I then create 20 more alts and kit them out identically and sell those avatar and all their assets to people who want to be the Batman. And that goes ahead, and I actually decide I don't want my own Batman anymore, so I take that away. But I've actually sold 20 alts, all of which are perfect replicas of the Batman. And then suddenly Warner Communications turns around and says, hang on, who's merchandising the Batman? I've long since disappeared, but there are 20 people in there with something I actually wholly created, but of course I did so by modeling it on something that is a trademark and copyright elsewhere. But you can imagine
that doesn't essentially differ from creating the outfit and selling the outfit to anybody who wants it.
Yeah.
You don't need to create alts and sell the accounts.
No, no, I don't. But I'm just I'm just making a hypothetical thing here where it goes beyond the outfit. Well, obviously everything about an avatar is its outfit at the end of the day. But I'm just thinking. I'm the one who's fraudulently sold a trademark character, and I've disappeared. What the legal ramifications if somebody comes along and?
Well, that's one question.
I don't know.
The bigger question is now that you've admitted that you're Batman to everybody.
Well,
you heard it here first. Mel Barnes is Batman.
I don't think Warner is of the same mindset as Disney is, but Disney would probably subpoena the payment records that you used to pay for the lindens that you used to upload the assets, then track you down through PayPal and whatever, and actually sue you because Disney is like that.
Disney is evil like that. They will track you to the ends of the earth, and they will track you and find you and hunt you down. They seem so nice and happy on the outside, but man, you do not want to cross them.
TiVoization is a word, and Disneyfication is also a word.
Disneyfication, yeah. But
even if you live in a galaxy far, far away, they've got you now.
They got you. Now,
it's just hard to see Peter Pan and Snow White and all them guys as the mafia.
They really are. I grew up around Disney so much, like directly involved, and I'm like, they seem so happy on the outside, but man, these people are like, they're when you get to the corporate level, these people are evil.
So what else is new?
And
actually, these guys define evil.
Traditional Disney. I mean, Disney creations used to be wonderful, but Walt Disney himself was a real slave driver. I mean, he paid absolutely nothing and tossed them. They were treated like slaves, the animators and things. And in those days, there were hundreds of them you needed to make these. And he ran that studio as like a sweatshop.
Oh, sort of like the 3D content sweatshops.
Came out. Yeah. Oh, quite. Yes, I'm sure those aren't far away either.
You don't want to cross them.
Let's move on to other things. Say that. We don't really have anybody to tell us what's going on in Second Life this week. We normally do a roundup of that, but there are plenty. All I can tell you is there's about 1,000 different Halloween hunts going on in Second Life. So there, you can take your pick. You won't be able to do them all. There's no possible way of getting them in. But maybe a roundup of kind of what's new in what our guests are sort of doing. I'll start with you, La, because you are particularly Second Life focused, and we have the LEA, and of course one of the hits we've heard about in the last couple of days is Bruno resigning from the the governing committee, I guess it is, of the LEA, and I was in IM with him just before the show. He can come on, but he's given me a couple of names of people we might get here next week. But this is serious. Bruno, for Christ's sake. It's got standing as being on that committee. He's got standing, has got standing for, their creations. They do machinima. I mean, you can't really ignore Bruno if you're...
you never ignore.
Bruno's an icon in the art community and has been for a long time. There's probably not a Linden that hasn't heard of Bruno. As much as they disassociate themselves with the community as a whole, she's one of the names that they all know and recognize, and rightfully so, because Bryn has put a lot of time, effort, and of her own creativity into fostering the arts in Second Life.
Absolutely amazing work.
Speaking as a member of the LEA committee myself, I hate to see this toss thing and all of that provoke her into using it as a means to protest or something like that. I honestly don't think she's doing herself a service in her show of solidarity here, and I don't really think that she's fostering the arts like she was when she came to the Second Life. She has a conflict of interest. On one hand, she's telling them, yes, build, and now on the other hand, it's no, wait, don't build. And when you're a community leader, and you're caught in that conflict of interest, that can be very stressful, because you get it from both sides then. Our objective in the LEA was to foster the arts and performing arts in Second Life. As far as Linden Labs and the TOS, Linden Labs has absolutely nothing to do with the LEA. Nothing. They're not even involved. This is the land is even owned. The estates are owned by the committee themselves. 3 of us own all of the LEA. We own the land in contracts that we have with Linden Lab. From that point on, we in the contract, we are supposed to do whatever we want to do with this land to help foster the arts in Second Life. So now that
that's absolutely disingenuous right there. I'm cutting you off. That's disingenuous.
No, hang on.
Absolutely bullshit, buddy. I'm cutting you off right there. The TOS supersedes it all. Unless each artist has an individual contract with them, the TOS inviting other artists in here under that TOS is conflict of interest. That's what she's talking about. She can't in good conscience come in here and say, all you guys out here in the real world, we want you to bring your stuff in here. Not unless they got a contract with them. You might have it, they don't. And in good conscience, she can't foster that.
It's just for the land. I'm talking
the land. It's not for you and your artwork then.
Content itself. It doesn't. If you invite an artist onto a sim and you
that's what your job is then. That's what LEA is for, inviting people in there. And you're doing it under disingenuous terms now. She has a conflict of interest. I'm not going to attack her for making a moral stand. That's absolutely correct. She has a conflict of interest for doing it.
I'm not attacking her.
But sitting here and saying, well, it's nothing to do with it.
And if it sounds like that, it's only in that.
Saying that Linden Lab has nothing to do with it is absolute BS.
And
that wasn't. Hold it, Will. Hold it. Time out. I believe what LaPiscean meant was that LEA is itself independent of Linden Lab.
Right.
Not the terms of service.
And what we do. There.
Yeah, right.
So, and look at this here. If an artist gets a sim for 6 months, you multiply that times $300 a month, and what do you come up with? So, in essence, if anything, we're paying the artists to come over there and build their stuff. I mean, they don't pay for that land. They get it free gratis 6 months. That land goes at the rate of about $300 a month. Now, the grids, these other grids, they're offering land too to get the creators to come to their land. We'll give you all the land you need. Come on over here, bring your content over here, help us build our community.
Yeah, the difference between that's all well and good, but the difference is that they're not under a TOS that claims rights and resells for everything you put in here. That's a difference.
There's other artistic groups in Second Life doing the same thing. There's a photography group, I think that Joe Yardley runs, that is having a similar thing. Should photographers upload their artwork if she can't guarantee that their rights are going to be respected in Second Life?
Right.
I think let me. We don't get too bitchy about all this. I mean, we all love the LEA and what it does and what it stands for and everything else. As you say, Bryn is a total icon. She has made a decision which is based on, it seems to me, she has said, right, the new terms of service of Linden Lab preclude me from doing what I normally do.
I totally
my work belongs to someone else. So it's not an issue of, you're
totally
giving me that. I'm sure she. Hang on. Just a sec. I'm sure she is totally indebted to you and respects you for being giving the land that you control, and we recognise you're independent of Linden Labs, despite the name Linden Endowment, but it's an independent thing. That really isn't the issue. It's the fact that she is a prestigious person, and she and an icon, if you like, and she has reacted to the new terms of service to the extent that it's rippled in to her position at LEA.
I totally
it's rippled into her ability to do work and stuff like that. And I think the significance, and it's particularly significance because of that standing she has. She has made that decision, and I'm sure she had to think about it. I mean, it's been a week or two since the new TS came in. after an agonizing decision, presumably she's decided this is the way it has to be. So it's not a reflection on LEA. It is very much a reflection on the Linden Lab TOS. The fact that it's uncomfortably hit the LEA and brought the LEA into focus slightly because she's a committee member I would just describe as being really, really unfortunate.
It's a side effect, but you shouldn't be, you shouldn't be ticked off at her, or you shouldn't be saying, well, it's unfortunate that she left the LEA and blah blah.
I'm not.
No,
you
should be.
Listen,
this is what it looks like. Saying that Linden Lab has nothing to do with you guys is absolute BS. As long as that TOS governs everything in SL and you exist in SL, they have their hand on it. They control that. Unless you have individual contracts otherwise.
I respect Bryn's right to step down and her integrity to stick to her convictions and join whatever movement there is in protest. I totally appreciate that. Even if I don't agree with what she's doing, I agree with her right to do it. She is the creator. All I'm saying is that I don't believe that Bryn did the LEA or the artists that are in the LEA any favors by stepping down. You know what I mean? And so tend to go online and How
do you figure? How do you figure when she won't support a TOS that would arguably take those rights away? How would you figure that that's not doing them a service? How do you figure that's a disservice when she's actually acting in favor of content and the rights of that?
Because
that's what an artist should be doing. That's why artists are leaving. That's why people are shutting down their Sims and going elsewhere.
Is it possible?
It's a moral cause. It's a
is it
conflict
possible for LaPiscean to finish what he was trying to say?
Sure.
Go.
I'm just saying that, in this stand for solidarity and promoting these other grids, like, I've been to Cloud Party and, and getting her cohorts on this movement as well. I understand all of that, making this statement to Linden Labs, because Bryn don't really want to leave. She didn't really want to leave the LEA. She doesn't want to leave Second Life. But in an effort to change what Linden Labs is doing, she is taking this step. I'm just saying that in taking this step, she has set back the very things that she has started in the LEA and the people and her position in the LEA.
No, she didn't set it back. Linden Labs set it back with writing that TOS.
Okay, Linden Labs set it back. Okay, Linden Labs set it back.
This is the fallout from Linden Labs.
Did it to the LEA. Linden Labs did it to Bryn. Linden Labs did it to every content creator that's in the grid. So if Bryn is right, and this is what we should follow and do, well, then Linden Labs ought to be able to close their doors tomorrow.
Or change the TOS. They can change the TOS.
Or they can just change it back.
Yeah.
They can change it back the way it was. That doesn't take it all.
Hang on a second. Can we let's take this one at a time, because I can tell from Skype we're getting a lot of talk over each other here. Actually, I mean, it's it seems to me that it may benefit the LEA what she's doing actually at the end of the day, because it may actually this sort of stuff is presumably rippling through to the lab. Maybe they will, change their TOS again more favorably. But Maria, before we came
on, points. Yes, and there's so three big things of news: CG textures and renderosity, which are two big sources of free textures, now prohibit their textures from being uploaded to Second Life because of the TOS. Yeah. The Second Life creators, a large Second Life creators group, the big one, held a survey just a couple of days ago, and in the survey, 11% said they were leaving Second Life altogether as a result of these changes. 14% said they stopped uploading and are removing some of their content, and 39% said that they just stopped uploading new content. So 64% of the respondents, which is about 2/3 of the content creators, are easing back on adding new content to Second Life,
and that's quite a statement.
And define easing back. Does that mean they not really fully in protest because
like I said, 11% are leaving totally, 14% stopped uploading and are removing their existing content, and 39% said they stopped uploading new content. So the old content that they're figuring is under the old TOS. They've stopped uploading the new content until they see what shakes out, see if Second Life changes the TOS.
However, there are additional ramifications, actually, which is when somebody uploads something that they made with textures that somebody else made, they are actually possibly extending the copyright grant to Linden Labs that they're not in a position to extend. So this TOS actually makes normal uploading of such content illegal and puts the user in an untenable position.
Exactly, which is why CG Textures and Red Rosity pointed this out.
If I may, if I may just interrupt here again, Maria, before we came on air, you actually reminded me of a blog post. In fact, you just more or less mentioned it anyway, but it's I'm going to read out the address. It's http:// usual stuff, Toy Talks, all one word, TOYTALKS.weebly, that's WEEBLY.com. And they're supposed they're saying Second Life Content Creators Survey on Linden Lab TOS, and I think, Maria, I've got it up I've got it up here, but it goes into more on those figures, doesn't it?
Yes, it is very sobering, and Linden Lab should definitely be paying attention to this because their platform lives and dies by user-generated content.
On the other hand, of course, there may be some reasons why they can't go back on it. And, well, it's a telling point if they don't go back on it, actually. It means something's forcing their hand, and we'd have to expect one of the horror scenarios that have been laid out, like a total closure, like a sale, like asset stripping, like it being broken up into different companies, or its tech being sold off, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is the lesson here, really, is that they apologized but didn't retract anything. And the end result of this, it's taken some weeks for some people to have actually cottoned on to this, but it is becoming a viral concern. And we've been talking about it for 3 or 4 weeks, and we're still talking about it, and there's still new stuff and new issues coming up, and new personalities coming up.
And we have learned that Second Life is willing to change its mind under pressure, as happened with the third-party exchanges in the spring. They said no more exchanges. That after all the user issues came up, why this was a problem for everybody, that they backed off and they said you can have third-party exchanges as long as A, B, and C. So hopefully they'll do the same thing here. I've got my fingers crossed.
I really don't see why they wouldn't. I mean, Lab doesn't put me in the mind of a stupid organization. Just plain out and out stupid. I just can't picture that.
I was going to comment that the situation with third-party exchanges, I had the definite impression that they had a bit of a forced march thanks to the IRS on that, and that their change in position was really them having to line up some ducks before they could open up for third-party exchanges.
There wasn't even a change of position.
To finish, I'm not quite done yet. On the other hand, the thing that has occurred to me is that if they are paying attention to this discussion, if they are taking it to heart, I would expect that they are probably under a mandate from their legal beagles who are writing whatever changes there are being written, and we will not know about it until we see a signature for a new TOS appear when we try to log into Second Life. Because attorneys are very big on telling people to keep your trap shut when they're in the process of making changes. So that's one possible explanation. If this goes on for another couple of weeks with no change, then I think, to my mind anyway, I would start to entertain some of the other explanations that are floating around more seriously. I'm done.
Okay. I think this conversation is going to run and run, but I think due to time and everything else, we're going to sort of bring the main conversation to a bit of a wrap here. No Safia this week. She's busy on Black Mirror and all sorts of stuff, Sapphire. And I'm pleased to say I'd like to welcome back Pet Love this week. She's right here. Notable events during the week is Second Life here, obviously. Some things will just go on and on, toss or no toss, or don't give a toss. And Avenue have been celebrating a fashion week, and I know Pet Love has been on air from noon till God only knows what time, every single day for 7 days, broadcasting Avenue, and it's been broadcast by LaPiscean here. So kudos to all concerned for getting that marathon on air, I think is the best way of describing it. So that you must all be rather exhausted as a result of that. And as I said, loads of hunts and things going on. But we'll skip on the sort of in-world events and stuff this week. I haven't got a particularly coherent list. I really need somebody on the panel who knows more details than I do. What I'd like to do before we sort of sign off is go round to each of you individually, hopefully not talking over each other, and just any final comments, but also any news, if you've got individually to tell us about what's going on, or what's happening on your grids, or what's happening at LEA, what's happening in Woolburn's head, what's happening on the Hypergrid. Let's start with Will this time.
Will?
Ooh.
What am I doing now?
Silent.
Will he or will he not?
What am I doing now? I'm sorry.
Final words.
You'll give it your
closing thoughts.
Your final word.
My closing thought is simple.
Yeah.
My closing thought is pretty simple. From a moral and conscientious viewpoint, what I think that the TOS is written exactly the way they want it. It doesn't matter what they say outside. What matters is their action, not their words. They can tell you you're not going to do whatever. It's written exactly the way they want it. It's very precise, and it delves down into the details. Now, as far as Bren, I'm behind her because that actually does serve the artist. That says, as a public figure, as a very popular and a very recognizable figure in here, I don't support what's going on. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that you should either. That's what it's about. That serves artists, because when you got 64% of the population looking at this going, I don't think I like this, and I don't think I want to be in here anymore unless they get their act together. Yeah, as a public figure, that's what public figures should be doing. You should be standing with everybody on that one. You should be standing in favor of the content creators and the artists and everything else who are saying, no, I'm not okay with this. And you know what? As a public figure, I'm not okay with this. Hands down, I don't give a crap what people think about me. I'm just not okay with it. And until then, I'm not uploading anything either. It's just simple as that. I stopped. Right. The only two things I have for sale are not available to Linden Lab anyway outside here. It's useless to them. I refuse to do anything further until it gets fixed.
I'm too busy doing anything else to create or upload anything other than that. So it doesn't bother me at all. Anything else, Will? I'm related to this going on in the week or whatever. You want to plug while you're here?
No, not really. I mean, I'm just saying, I'm stand with the content creators on this one, even though it doesn't really affect me much.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree with what where the sentiment is right now. If they wanted it fixed, it would have been fixed already. There's absolutely no reason to have that wide sweeping TOS and then give you a half an excuse in a blog and say, well, no, we're never going to do that. Change the damn thing back then. If you really mean it, change it back. End of story. Quit pussyfooting around.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. My thoughts exactly, really. Okay, Maria. I did do a summary at the beginning of stuff from my Twitter feed, but what's exciting that's been going on OpenSim and the Hypergrid?
First of all this month, all the major grids are having Halloween themed stuff. I did an article about that about 5 days ago, called the monthly grid report, and things are happening on all the grids. And I have hypergrid addresses to stuff that you can hypergrid to, or how to log into grids for everything else. Kitely's trying to take advantage of this TOS thing. They've dropped their listing fees. They're promising full exports of the marketplace listings. Now, Kitely already has exports. So if you're a merchant, you can set up the free region that they give you. You can create a build. You can download the whole thing to a local OR file. use it on your own grid, on any other grid if you want, or just keep it as a backup archive just in case you need it. But what they're going to be adding...
Except Second Life, I take it.
Except Second Life, yeah. What they're going to be adding is an export of your marketplace listings. So everything that goes into a marketplace listing, the content itself is an AR file, plus all the metadata, all the listing information, and it's going to be an XML file, so that any other grid, if they want to, can set up a little importer to bring this content into their marketplace. So creators don't have to go through listing everything over and over again. And I think this is if the Kitely marketplace becomes popular, because they have a lot of tools for creators to debug their products and stuff like that, and plus the free building, free uploads, all that good stuff. And there's no charge for any of this. So if creators want to do this, and this is fine with Kitely, they can just set up a marketplace and export everything and just upload it to any other marketplace that they want to adopt that takes these XML imports. So this is a very kind of forward-thinking, generous move on the part of Kitely, because instead of locking people in, they're saying, go out, do stuff. So,
but it's limited to marketplace, actually.
Well, they already have war exports for your full region. Then they're going to have the marketplace listings, and they will also have IAR exports for inventory listings. But this is specifically for merchants, to make it attractive for merchants, is you can export your marketplace store, and then you can move that whole store to another marketplace. And this is the first time I've ever heard of anybody doing this, so I thought that was very interesting. And I've got stories up about this at hypergridbusiness.com. Oh, and Inworld has a cool new InShape app, which I think could be really cool if it works with Stairmasters or treadmills, if they could create a zombie chasing game. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with that.
We showed what Tara mentioned earlier, of course, but we showed a clip on last week's show.
Oh, okay, so you know about it.
Advertising that. Yeah, you do. It is still, you do actually, you have to go through the process of signing up for a beta, and you have to have a suitable pad and a suitable kit and everything else. And in fact, I signed up for the beta, but I don't have a treadmill. I thought all I needed was my iPad, but never.
Sorry, you can't walk on your iPad now.
You can't use it to run it. You can't use it while, say, running in place.
Well, yeah, demo I saw showed the demo I saw showed a pad at the side of a computer, and the motion in the pad was being transferred to the avatar, and it was kind of all running on the spot. So I thought I was just going to do some running on the spot exercises, to be honest. But it's
the way it works is you have an Android app that you wear your cell phone, and as you move, it records the fact that you're moving, and your avatar speed is based on how much you're moving. So as you exercise harder, your avatar runs faster, and you get away from the zombies. So I'm really pitching the zombies thing. I want to see some zombies.
Yeah, well, if they can get together in time, it's the perfect season, isn't it? We've got a whole month of virtual Halloween, as opposed to the organic Halloween, which only lasts for one night. I would add that Metaverse TV are having a big thing on the actual night of it. No, on the weekend, I think it's following Halloween, which is a sort of interactive Macbeth kind of role-play event, which will be quite interesting. But we'll tell you more about that near the time of Halloween, as opposed to the virtual Halloween that's going on at the moment. Right, anything else, Maria, you think of?
That's the top stories. We've already talked about the TOS way more than I think everything that I wanted to say. I'm going to be doing another grid report for the statistics in about a week. But meanwhile, I just looked up the SL numbers just to see what was going on, and SL lost another 100 regions since this time last month. So it's down almost 2,000 regions at this time last year. And it's down 5,200 regions from its peak in June 2010.
There is, I've noticed that there seems to be a perpetual slowdown slide at the moment. In volume terms, it is a slow slide, but the fact is it's a continuing slide speaks for itself, really. Okay, Lap. Closing thoughts. Anything exciting coming up, or we have I got this? No. The mocap thing would have been. Yes, did I miss one yesterday? Or was it put off? The first Saturday of the month, isn't it? Anyway, anything new coming up?
Well,
still there?
yes. I was just thinking on the issue of the toss thing. I'm not really affected by it. I kind of have always promoted the art and the artist. I didn't charge them. I didn't sell their stuff. And when it comes down to the art and the content in Second Life, I guess that's up to the creator whether he's willing to just share it with the world, or in the back of his mind he has to maintain some kind of right to it for monetary purposes or something later on. Money kills everything. I don't really deal in money. I don't even market my own company. Pet does. That said, I want to apologize. It was never my intention to go from being thought-provoking to provoking people with my thinking. That was never in my intention. I want to apologize for that. As far as the LEA is concerned, I'm sticking with it because I still believe in what I'm doing there is the right thing. And machinima and film really wasn't affected by the toss like 3D content and that kind of thing was it with this toss thing. So I'm still in there for my people, so to speak. I don't. I've looked at the video options and the broadcasting options and things around the different grids, as far as presentations and event promotions and that kind of thing goes. And I'm happy where I'm at. This whole toss thing to me is like one monkey, in a great big thing, and everybody knows one monkey don't stop no show. So that's where I'm at. And in conclusion, I guess that if you're not here after what I'm here after, I'll be here after you're gone, I guess. Oh,
that was wonderfully put. No, I think I agree. I mean, the LEA is a wonderful thing, and as you're correct in saying that broadcast and stuff like the machinima isn't really affected, and I think it just comes down again to what people want to do and what they're willing to do. If they're taking a gamble, but they've got time in their hands, they want to do that, they do it. So I appreciate that some people are going to think twice. Other people are probably just going to carry on as normal. So the LEA is a great institution. I think we can call it an institution now. Some wonderful stuff to be seen there and wonderful stuff happening there. So that's great. And we are actually expecting you back next week or whenever to talk about 48-hour machinima, aren't we? When we eventually get Melissa tied down.
I spoke with Melissa, and she's getting lined up for that. We just got the machinima page finished on the 48-hour website with all of its rules and regulations. And right now, it seems to be a single page, and I'm trying to get it a little more notoriety by getting machinima added to the drop-down list on the front of the 48-hour film page. They're in the process of complying with that a little bit. We'll take FTP access to their servers probably 1 week before the screenings, and then you and I will be going through all that material. What we got to do to all that, and then you're right. And then over the weekend, that'll kick off on November 8th, and that will also be held over at the LEA. The kickoff for the 48-hour film project, and that is on November 8th. There'll be a madhouse of filmmaking over the weekend, and then sometime within that next week we will be doing the screenings over at the LEA as well for that. So we're proud to be a sponsor of the 48-hour film project this year, and right now we have 2 teams that have already signed up in the machinima aspect of it.
And after all that's over, the awards too, of course, because at the end of the day, we want to know who we thought done the best. Okay, that's great. And finally, our special guest, as it were, Melanie, any more thoughts you've got? Anything we haven't covered about Avination? I was about to say animation. Avination and indeed whatever current events, anything exciting happening, etc.
Well, first off, I've got to say for the SLTOS, I'm with those who say I'm not going to upload more content until we get a resolution on that one. But as I pointed out before, we don't have this problem in Avination. Our TOS still gives the creator all the rights to his creations, and that is not going to change. That's a promise. We're doing Halloween events, of course. As Maria already said, all the grids do it, and we're no different with our purpose-built sims. If you want to get chased by zombies, just stop on by. We got plenty. Parties, events, DJs, it's all there. Look at the cityscapes that they're building also. There's a lot to see in Avination. Remember, access is free. And besides that, I've been very busy with developing a lot of technology regarding the conference, the Hypergrid, and other things, and we'll be rolling that out very shortly. So stay tuned for even more compatibility. If Avination is your destination of choice coming out of Second Life, most of these stuff should work just right out of the box. Also try Oculus.
Okay, great. And just on a technical note, getting into Avination, is there an Avination viewer, or will Singularity and the
Singularity will work fine? There is an Avination viewer as well. The Avination viewer is available in German, French, and Spanish in addition to English. Just like Singularity is, we provided the Singularity German translation, in fact. It's an ongoing process. And yes, you can use vanilla Singularity, or you can use the Avination viewer. If you rather have a version 3 interface, Firestorm will work for you. Apart from that, of course, Control Studio with Oculus Rift can't beat it.
Right, but nothing for the Leap device, yes. Shame on you.
Oh, that will come, I'm sure.
Yeah, we hope. Live in hope. I do like it, actually. Right, and finally, Tara, closing thoughts.
Well, I just want to thank everyone that's been here today for a very lively discussion. I think it's stay tuned. Whatever the next chapter is, will be whatever the next chapter is. Good stuff, and. Yeah, I think we're all kind of in a wait and see on certain aspects of what happens with Linden Lab and Second Life.
Well, thank you. Indeed we are, I think. Right. It's a bit like last week, actually. It was me and Tara on our own, except for Debs last week. But somehow we got into extremely interesting talk that went on for a long, long while. So 2 weeks of quite serious discussion here. Maybe we'll get a bit more frivolous next week if I can bring myself to do such things. Okay, well. I think we'll call it a wrap for this week. Thanks again to all of us, everybody who joined us. LaPiscean Liberty, thank you.
Thank you, Mal. It's great to be on.
Melanie Milland, thank you very much.
Yeah, you're so very welcome. I was glad to be here. Yes, I will be back if you invite me back. If you'll have me, I will be back.
I'm sure we will. And thank you, Maria Korolov from Hypergrid Business. Wonderful to have you here again.
Thank you, Mel. I love to hear myself talk.
Well, we'll come back anytime. You want a weekly booking?
That's some funny stuff right there.
Indeed. And of course to Will Burns, who, as always, manages to inject the unknown into the conversation. I often say, but great contributions there from Will. So thank you, Will.
It's always a pleasure coming on when I got a chance. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. And, of course, thank you to Tara. But that goes without saying, doesn't it, my dear? Right, so, that's it for this week. We will be back same time, same place next week. We do have a studio on another grid. In fact, I think we've got 2 studios on there. So if SL does disappear, we'll let you know. We'll be somewhere. Just look on Twitter. But I've got a funny feeling we'll still be here next week with another edition of the Inworld Review. So thanks everybody for being here. We're going to leave you with a whole load of clips, starting off with the machinima, then the arts, and then the destinations, and all the lifestyle stuff. We actually have a little clip about the sci-fi challenge that was UWA and associates are doing, which is coming out just before the rest of the machinima stuff. So we're going to cue a clip here. Hopefully it works out. I'm just waiting for the cue clip button to come up, and it has done. So with that, we'll see you next week. Thanks for watching. Works out. I'm just waiting. We'll see you next week. Thanks for watching.